Leaving behind the Midwest farmland at Mid-Ohio, the teams headed east and arrived at the historied circuit of Watkins Glen International. After GS qualifying, Dan Rash came out on top with Steve Browne rounding out the front row. In ST class, Carl Williamson tucked another pole position into his pocket, but James Stevenson lined up beside him with less than a tenth of a second between them in qualifying times. Unfortunately for Williamson, he seemed to have developed a curse for starting in first place, and this time suffered hardware problems with his pedals. Wall contact sent him to the pits and the back of the field by the end of lap 1. Cautions and accidents were the order of the day. Before halfway, the yellow flags came out 4 times. Phil Schrader made contact with Fred Masters' Band-Aid Mustang, and Chris Duffy found the mess impossible to avoid. Clayson gave the back of Alexis Molina a shove, who later drifted into Andre Trago. Both took hard knocks into the inside wall, and Trago came out wheels up. On lap 10, connection issues for Antti Tuominen gave Fred Masters yet another scare when his MX-5 appeared right in front of the Mustang under braking. Tuominen narrowly avoided overguard, but the Dane's luck ran out a few hundred feet later when he rejoined directly into the side of Schrader's number 15 Mustang. Close racing between Richard Losper and Eric Biggs came to a head at the exit of the boot, and the two made contact. This also collected Matthew Reinhold. In the midst of the yellows, Arthur Chan's car disappeared in a puff of netcode, removing him from the lead. In GS, Eric Smith had yet to make his pit stop and was also shuffled to the top. But Steve Browne decided he didn't want to wait for Eric's stop and pounced for the lead. Meanwhile, the ST lead was changing hands faster than a drug deal as it swapped between the likes of Stefan Maurienne, Chris Moran, and Patrick Gallagher. But Carl Williamson overcame his gremlins from lap 1 and already worked his way back to the lead pack. He capped off his charge with a double overtake for the lead. On lap 20, Stevenson flirted with disaster at turn 11, which caused him damage that would later hurt his top speed. Up at the front, Browne used everything at his disposal to hold back a charging Dan Rash. Both parties refused to yield and came to blows first on lap 25, then again on lap 28. Unfortunately, for the second race in a row, Rash experienced computer problems. His screen unexpectedly went black, causing him to veer off the road. The damage sent him too far back to recover. Fred Masters' miserable day was completed on lap 33 when he got himself turned around at the heel of the boot. This brought out the final caution, with only 8 minutes left on the clock. That allowed Russell Clayson to close the gap to GS leader Steve Browne. In ST, Arthur Chan had made his own recovery drive and was all the way up into second. But Mr. Unlucky lived up to his reputation, and his connection went out once again, extinguishing his hopes of a win. As the clock ticked down, the green returned with enough time for a single lap dash to the finish. But the restart was met with confusion by Steve Browne, and Russell Clayson jumped him before the start-finish line. J.D. Baumgartner looked to relieve Browne of second, but Steve managed to hold him off. In the end, Clayson took his first CESCS win. Browne followed home in second, and Baumgartner came in third. The Marshals had missed Cannonball's infraction and decided to hand him a stiff warning post-race instead, while letting him keep the controversial victory. In ST, Carl Williamson caught lap traffic in the final corner, which brought Huffman side by side with the Englishman. But it was not enough, and Elliott's number 52 machine missed the win by a mere 3/100ths of a second. James Stevenson filled the final spot on the podium for the second time in a row. This was Williamson's first win in Season 3. After the carnage at the Glen, the teams have traveled back home again to Indiana. Victory at the Brickyard is coveted by many, but only one will have the chance to kiss the bricks as we get ready to compete at the legendary Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Welcome to Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is the talented Kevin Browne. Also, directing all the cameras, we have Giancarlo Lenzi. Hopefully joining us a little bit later is the adept Richard Losper. He's currently experiencing technical problems, but we hope to be able to bring him in. The Brickyard has seen the best cars and drivers from all over the world compete amongst its hallowed walls. Today, the drivers of the Continental Endurance Sports Car Series will go head-to-head in hopes of adding their names to the elite list of winners at Indy, and we'll bring it all to you live on the global SimRacing channel. Well, Kevin, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Joe. Glad to be here at Indianapolis for what we're hoping is going to be a great race.
Absolutely. You can see the graphic up there right now to familiarize our viewers with the track a little bit. Obviously, this is a 2.6 mile road course. We're not doing the oval today. It's got 13 corners, and the drivers are going to be tackling it for 90 minutes as per usual in this series. So it'll be definitely an interesting one. Very flat course and a bit technical in places. However, though a win is valuable to many here at Indy, the points still count the same as every other race in the season. So with that in mind, I'll hand it over to you, Kevin. Bring us up to speed on who's in contention to win the GS championship.
Well, our GS leader right now is Dan Rash, sitting on 178 points, and that's even with the 2 computer malfunctions he's had in the last 2 races. He still is leading by a single point over the last round winner, Russell Clayson, who has a 1-point lead over J.D. Baumgartner in third. Fourth is Russell's V Apex teammate, Germana Fanador, and fifth is our Season 2 champion, Steve Browne, who is sitting 24 points behind Dan Rash.
It seems like it's extremely close up there. I mean, 2 points between the top 3 guys is just incredible in GS class. Now, on the other hand, ST is just slightly different. What's the ST scoring looking like?
Well, in ST, it's currently being led by Carl Williamson, who's sitting on 187 points. 3 points behind him is James Stevenson. 28 points behind Carl is Stefan Overgaard. And then in fourth place is our rookie Alex Bilal. And fifth is Elliot Huffman, sitting on 149 points. So also battles there to be found as well.
Which we always like to see. We want it to stay entertaining all the way into the end. Well, we do have a track guide to get you guys up to speed with what the track looks like from the ground level. So we're going to take you over to that as Giancarlo Lenzi takes us around in an MX-5. All right, we're going to do a lap around Indianapolis Motor Speedway with Giancarlo Lenzi. Coming onto the front straightaway here, this is the longest time on the gas of the entire course, and with the heavy braking zone into turn 1, this is going to be your best opportunity for a pass coming up here. You're going to want to spot your braking about at the 2 marker, which will be on your left right there. Now, be very careful not to cut the cones on the inside too much, because you can get a slowdown penalty from those. Then get back to the left and get back on the gas. Don't get on too soon, because you can get into the grass on the right there. Now, braking for turn 4 is very tricky. It's a deceivingly fast corner. You want to carry as much speed as you can around it. And then it's flat out all the way until turn 6, which is the 180-degree left-hander coming up here. Braking for it now. And this is a very long corner. You're going to be going around it for what seems like a very long time. And then get the car to the left, and this sharp right-hander that leads onto the back straight. You want to get on the power because of that, but don't go too far on the exit, because you can get a slowdown penalty onto the back straightaway here. Now, if you get a very good exit, you can possibly get a pass done, but it's tricky. You got to be much faster than the other person. Braking into this left-hander here. This is a series of S's you want to set up for the following corner always. Get to the right side here, and then chop as much of the sharp left-hander as you can. Get back on the gas as soon as you can, because you want to get flat out through this right-hander, cut as much of that pavement on the inside as you can. Giancarlo got just a little bit of the grass on the exit, you see. Now, the reason you want to be on the gas as quickly as you can is because you're going to be on the power all the way into the first corner from here. You'll see the pit entry there on the right. You want to make note of that, because if you enter too late, you will get an unsafe pit entry. Coming around the final corner, again, flat out, you just want to put as little steering angle in as you can and track out to the wall. And hopefully you got a good run on the guy behind you and the draft is pulling you in. But that's a lap around Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Awesome stuff from Giancarlo. He can definitely lap around here just a little bit faster than I could, that's for sure. Well, the last race win was definitely a controversial one, Kevin. What exactly happened on the final lap, and what was the IRT's ruling on that?
Well, there was a lot of action. As you may remember, the field was under a full course yellow, and with 1 lap to go was given the green. However, unfortunately, the leader at the time, Steve Browne, did not get the green at the same time as the cars behind him did. And Russell Clayson, who I believe was sitting in 2nd or 3rd place overall at the time, got a great start and passed Steve Browne before either one of them crossed the start-finish line, which is against the CESCS rules. Now, unfortunately, the normal penalty is an immediate stop-and-go penalty, a black flag. However, that was not able to be enacted before the race was over, so it went through a long review process. And the IRT, the Incident Review Team for Continental Endurance Sports Car Series, decided that the only thing that they could do, or at least the best solution that they had, was to issue a warning to Russell. So what we do know is that even though both Steve Browne and Russell Clayson were upset with how the race finished, Russell Clayson was awarded the win, and Steve Browne was awarded 2nd place. Suffice to say that there are many drivers throughout the field who are unhappy about the rulings, but that's the way the organizers have decided it needs to be.
And, that's just the way it goes in racing sometimes, and you got to just take it and roll with it. Well, we are in the midst of qualifying for GS right now, which means our ST guys are just kind of sitting around waiting to get out onto the track. I see a few of them are sitting in the booth waiting to be interviewed, though, and Hang Ho Tao is one of those guys that we don't get to talk to a whole lot, so I'm going to drag him in here and see if he's willing to talk for just a little bit. Hang, can you hear us? Might not have his buttons configured entirely at the moment. We'll give him a little bit longer to see if he's ready to talk to us.
Yes, I'm here.
There you are. Hey, Hank, we haven't talked to you a whole lot here on GSRC. While we're waiting for the GS cars to complete their qualifying, I know that the draft is going to be obviously a big issue for ST cars out here. Do you think that's going to enable you to be able to perform a little bit better than you normally would out in the field today?
Yeah, I really hope so, but we'll see, because it's just, works for you and works for someone else as well.
Absolutely, a double-edged sword. Now, you definitely had an interesting time 2 weeks ago at Watkins Glen. There was a number of incidents. I think you got caught up in 2 different car contacts. Do you expect to be able to stay out of it this time, with this being a very wide track, or do you think we'll see more yellows again this week?
Well, being a wider track, it's a bit easier to navigate, but the problem is there's no grip in the infield, so we'll probably see a lot of cars sliding around, which is going to be interesting at times.
Yeah, I've heard a few guys talk about the lack of grip on the infield. Now, the other thing that we did see is a few cars ran out of fuel at last season's race here at Indy. Have you got your fuel strategy figured out?
Well, the interesting thing is, from my calculation, it shows that we should be okay to finish with one pit stop, but some said we need 2, so I'm not very sure. Because I remember I did not finish this race last season, so I don't know yet.
All right, well, hopefully we'll see it be able to get to the end and not coast across the line, but thanks for coming and talking to us.
No worries, happy to talk to you guys.
All right, good luck. Well, we've got a little bit more time, and I see that we've got Dexter Castro also sitting there waiting. So I'm going to pull him in and ask a few questions here. Dexter, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can.
Dexter, this has been a bit of an up and down season for you. You had your podium earlier on, but since then it's been a few troubles. Do you think you can manage to get through this race clean and maybe get yourself a top 5?
Well, I had a nice week off, and hopefully my luck's turned around, because I started at the back of a night race at Sebring of an endurance race earlier today, and I managed to not hit anyone. So that's always a good sign.
Yeah, sometimes it just takes a confidence builder to get you, back in the rhythm. We see that 49 Motorsports has another member now with Eric Smith. You guys are getting pretty ubiquitous out there, it seems.
Well, we've always been pretty big on the ST side because of the fact that we had 2 GS drivers switch to ST, so that's how we ended up with so many ST drivers. But on the GS side, we've always sort of struggled to find consistent members. In fact, Erik is only our 2nd GS member who's running full time, so I don't think we're getting too big. Definitely no more on the ST side, but the GS side is still relatively small. It's really not, it's not huge.
Yeah, and hopefully Erik being one of the top runners, typically he can give you guys some more podiums along with JD. Thanks for coming to talking to us before the race.
Yep, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Next up, we have one of the championship leaders actually with us. James Stevenson is in here. James, can you hear us?
I sure can, fellas.
We've got just a few minutes before you guys have to get on the track, so we'll make it quick. I'm expecting you're looking to give yourself another W today. Am I correct?
Possibly. I'm just looking to stay out of trouble today. I've had a failure with my computer, so I'm down to 1 screen. So side-by-side racing's not going to be so easy today.
So I'm guessing you're probably going to take it a little bit easy if you get upside Carl. Is that right?
I don't believe Carl is on the server. I think it's Ayrton I have to look out for.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had totally missed that. Yeah, you're correct. Ayrton definitely seems to be setting some good lap times. Now, we talked about it briefly with, I think it was Hang Hotel, that fuel has been a bit of a concern because we saw in last season that a number of guys ran out. Have you got your strategy figured out, or are you concerned at all about being able to make it to the end?
I think fuel will be easy to make it to the end so long as you pit at the right time and not when you think a yellow is going to come out. I think that's what caught people out last year. They pitted early thinking they'd get a late yellow and they didn't get one.
All right, well, you guys are just getting ready to head on the track, so I'm going to let you go. Thanks for coming and talking to us.
Thanks for having me in.
All right, well, we've run through most of the ST drivers, and as I said, GS is just about done qualifying, but I think we should give them just a little bit longer until we read through what that order is. Now, we've got a number of stories before we go and switch over to more interviews here, Kevin, and I'm sorry I've kind of been haven't talked to you a whole much so far. A couple of the things that we wanted to bring up, and we have mentioned, is the draft. Although I think one of the things that you briefly touched on that I really would like to talk about is Clayson and Baumgartner in the hunt for the championship. This is something that I didn't really see coming a little bit earlier in the season, but those two's consistency has really put them back in the mix.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've criticized at least Russell Clayson a little bit for making some mistakes that probably could have cost him. But, right now he's only 1 point behind Dan Rash for the championship lead. So even though that we haven't seen perhaps the results we would expect from them based on their speed, both JD and Russell are placing well and getting points and, and doing themselves well to be up in the hunt for the championship. So if they're able to keep this run of solid placing going on, they may really have a shot at taking over this championship.
Very much so. Now, let's see, I think we wanted to get some interviews with a couple of the guys that were involved in last week's controversy. And since they've got the ST cars out on the track, why don't we see if we can bring someone in? I see Steve Browne is here. Kevin, would you like to talk to Steve real quick?
Yeah, let's see what Steve has to say. Hey, Steve, how you doing? So we see you've qualified well and are sitting on the front row, so congratulations.
Yeah, thanks guys. Was able to improve my practice time by 3/10 or so there, so I'm pretty happy.
As well as you should be. So we touched a little bit earlier in our broadcast about the finish last round between you and Russell Clayson. Would you like to give us a little bit about your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm not too happy about the decision that they made. That's the decision they made. We have to live with it and just go on to the next round here.
And speaking of the next round, behind you on the second row, we have somebody who's a bit of a stranger to the top five. Sitting in third place is Duljan Boldrin, and then behind you is Eric Smith. So how do you think about your chances so far at this moment?
Yeah, I think Dual John's only raced with us, one or two races this season, so I don't know a whole lot about him. So we'll see what happens there. And as usual, Eric was complaining about his setup during practice, so I'm sure he's got the pace. I'm sure it'll be a good fight.
And how are you feeling about your setups?
I was a little worried going into qualifying, but I think I got a lot more comfortable during qualifying with the setup, so I think I'm good to go here. Hopefully we get a podium.
All right, best of luck out there today, Steve.
Okay, thanks guys, have fun.
Good stuff from Steve there, and a very calm man after having a win supposedly almost stolen from him. So I kudos to him for having a lot of patience in this whole situation. Let's see, who would you like to give a chat with next there, Kevin?
Well, let's see if we can't get our pole sitter, Brian Strodbeck, in here.
All right, Brian's usually up towards the front, and he's continuing that pattern. Brian, can you hear us?
Yeah, I got you. You got me?
Loud and clear. So congratulations on pole position. You must be pretty pleased with that.
Yeah, it was a pretty decent lap. I left a little bit on the table, but yeah, it was good. I'll take it.
Well, you've seemed to have a little bit of speed over Steve Browne. You're sitting about 4/10 in front of him. So how do you feel about your chances today?
Yeah, I feel pretty good, but this track is like driving on ice, so anything can happen. I think if everybody just plays nice, it should be a nice clean race, but like I said, anything goes.
Yeah, absolutely. We do know that some of the drivers are complaining about their setups. Do you think you found something that works for you, or is that something you're going to be trying to work around for the duration of the race?
I think the big key to the setup here is your right foot on the gas. It's all about throttle control.
Well, we've seen that you've done pretty well at that today, so here's to hoping you have a good run. Is there anybody you want to give a shout-out to for this race?
I'll give a shout out to you guys. Appreciate what you guys do up there, and it's always fun and entertaining to watch the broadcast, and hopefully, we got a good show for you today.
Great. Thanks very much, Brian.
You bet.
Well, we've got a few more people sitting in the wings. I see Eric Smith actually sitting in there, and we don't really get to talk to him a whole lot. He's done really well for his rookie season. Why don't we give him a chat, Kevin?
Yes, absolutely. Eric, can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Loud and clear. So you're sitting fourth place after qualifying, just a couple of tenths behind Steve Browne and Diljan Bolger in front of you, but a little bit of a gap to the pole sitter, Brian Strodbeck. How are you feeling about your chances today?
I don't know, I'm a little tired after work. Don't tell the other drivers that, but I'm just hoping to hang in there and see what happens.
Now, we've seen before in the Continental Series that Indy can be a bit of a tricky race to master. Have you raced at this layout before?
No, I've never actually run a race here, and I've only run a couple practice sessions in the Radical here before. So most of the time today I just spent trying to remember which turn goes which direction.
Well, and we've noticed that you're wearing some fancy new colors on your Mustang. You want to tell us about that?
Yeah, Dexter invited me to race with 49 for the rest of the season, and I figured why not. Sure beats my orange traffic cone paint, so we'll see how it turns out.
All right, well, best of luck out there today, Eric.
Thank you.
And
All right. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I would like to speak to Scott Berger if he's around. He's somebody we don't get to often speak to.
Yeah, and, honestly, it's one of my favorite paint schemes in the whole field, so go for it.
Scott, can you hear us?
Oh, hey, sorry there. I just put my headphones back on.
Oh, no, it's perfect timing. So we don't get to talk to you very often, so we're glad that you're around to say a couple of words with us. So I see you've qualified in 8th place right in the middle of the field. So that's going to be an interesting race for you today, I think.
Yeah, it's about where I would expect to start and about where I usually start. So, the plan is keep it clean for the first few laps. I have a bit of a history of making a mistake early and having to catch up again throughout the race, so I'm hoping to avoid that today.
Well, Indy is definitely a tricky track sometimes to be able to do that. That infield section can seem awfully loose and skatey and just torturous, I've noticed.
Yeah, one little mistake on entry, and you try to catch up, at apex or mid-corner, and you're going to cause more problems than you're solving at that point.
And how have you noticed any conflict between the mid-pack Mustangs and the ST leaders in traffic?
It's pretty clear that going through the twisty parts of the infield that passing really doesn't make a ton of sense. I've seen a few STs move off the line and let the GS by, but I think the biggest thing will be no late passing into turn 1. I think the STs can get on the brakes a little later there, and if the Mustang is impatient and comes through with a late kind of move into turn 1, that's going to cause some problems today.
So I see qualified behind you are a couple of guys who don't have a lot of experience in our series, Darren Jump and Andrew Allen. Have you raced with these two before?
Actually, I've seen Darren quite a bit in the Mustang series. He and I have been had some pretty good races there and been pretty evenly matched. So, be interesting to see what kind of practice he's put in for this and see what kind of pace he has here.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, best of luck out there today, Scott.
Thank you very much.
Well, I think we got time for one or two more, actually. We've got about 5 minutes left for ST qualifying. Who would you like to talk to next, Kevin?
Well, I think we should probably talk to our GS Championship leader, Dan Rash, who apparently had some knee surgery. So we'd like to speak to him and see how he's doing.
All right, let's pull him in here and see if Dan's around to talk.
Dan, can you hear us?
Yep, loud and clear, guys.
So I understand that you had some knee surgery recently. Is that correct?
Yep, I tore a meniscus somehow, so I got that operated on last week.
So are you planning on actually running the entire race?
We'll see how it feels. It hurts after just about a minute if I use the ball of my foot on the throttle pedal, so I'm pushing it with my heel, and that doesn't seem to hurt too bad. So we'll see how long I go.
Okay. Well, we hope you start feeling better. You think you got your computer gremlins solved?
Yeah, now that my computer is solved, my knee's broken, but one of these days everything will be straight.
Well, best of luck out there today. I hope your knee is feeling okay, and that you're able to at least run the race.
Yeah, I'll be able to snag a couple points. See you guys.
All right, thank you, Dan.
Well, Kevin, that was some very enlightening interviews. Hopefully things don't get too muddied in Browne after all that information, though.
Well, yes. There's a little bit of pranking going on in the booth, I see. Yes, I see that our director sometimes is completely as mature as he can be. But we'll just move on from that and admire the very deep and talented GS field that we have out there today.
Absolutely. So let's talk about a few more of the issues since we've talked to a number of people by this point. One of the things I want to talk about is this first corner, because it's a bit unique. One, it's easier to overshoot than many, especially with a lack of grip. But two, those cones on the inside really don't do a whole lot from keeping you from accidentally getting a cut course.
Yeah, that's true. And those cones are kind of naturally placed because it's kind of the last cone there that's the problem cone, which I think is the place where most people seem to get their cut course penalty. And then it's a long cut course penalty where you just seem to lose gobs and gobs and gobs of time.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we're going to see, one or two, maybe, half a dozen people who have to slow down and give up some time. But the other thing I expect to see a lot of is if you lose your concentration, because that straightaway is so long, that I'm willing to bet you we're going to see a few guys overshoot and start to head onto the oval before they realize that they had long since missed their braking point.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's such a fast part. It's the fastest part of the track, and it's a fast point overall. And, the drivers will be trying to go as deeply as they can into the corner before, to defend their position or try and take advantage of their position. So it's a pretty easy corner to just completely miss altogether.
Yeah, I know when we had a bit of a fun race earlier, I did that a number of times. The other thing that I've noticed a trend happening throughout these races, Carl Williamson has started to become Mr. Comeback in the ST class. There's been, 3 races in a row now that he's come from the very back of the field back to the front?
Yeah, I think so. And it's kind of a little bit amazing to me that he's been able to pick through the field seemingly as easily as he has. But unfortunately, we won't get to see that kind of performance today.
Yeah, regretfully, he's not showed up for one reason or another. We don't have information on that, unfortunately. But if you haven't been watching our previous races, Carl Williamson has very much established himself as an aggressive driver, not in a bad way, just he has this uncanny ability to find an exact spot to put his car and get by the people who don't have the same pace, especially when things are just going thick and fast and the pack is all together. His restarts are just something to watch. So later, if you continue to follow this series, I definitely recommend keeping an eye on him and watch what the Maestro can do. Let's see, we've got about 30 seconds left until ST qualifying is done here. And tell you what, Kevin, why don't we make a pick for our winner in each class?
Well, I think GS class is going to be Brian Strodbeck. I think he's probably just a little too strong overall, and especially in such a tricky track with tricky conditions ahead of us.
I think I'm going to go opposite you instead of picking the Brian as you did, even though I'd like to be able to pick him. But I'm going to say that Steve's going to be able to pull one out. He's going to be really hungry after 2 weeks ago, and he seems to have finally gotten his savviness back from Season 2 and trying to regain his crown. What are you thinking on the ST side?
Well, that's a tough one. I think this race, at least in the ST field, is really going to be decided by who's going to master the draft and be able to take advantage of the openings that are given to them. And based on those 2 bits right there, I think James Stevenson's pretty tough to beat. He's proven that he's a good strategy driver and can win those kinds of races.
I agree, but I think from what I've seen, I'm going to call Alex Bilbao. He's really impressed me as the season has progressed. He's made good of coming in as a rookie and really taking his lessons and swallowing his pride, and just really, I think, has become a dominating force. So I wouldn't doubt that he'll be able to climb up from his 4th place qualifying position currently up to maybe grab himself another W. So cars are just now finishing up their qualifying laps, their hot laps. I think we're safe to call the at least GS qualifiers. Kevin, would you like to take us through the top 5 there?
Will do.
Actually, hold on, wait a second on that. I'm getting instructions from our director. I believe he's wanting to wait just a little bit longer on that. So let's hold off on that. I apologize for the miscommunication, ladies and gentlemen. I do have some other stories worth talking about, though, since we're waiting. We mentioned Rash's computer problems. The draft, we just talked about the draft just briefly, but I want to talk about it a little bit more. Now, obviously, it's something that's very, very huge and so much of a factor in the ST cars. You're going to see guys having draft battles. I think you're going to see guys possibly trying to conserve fuel, waiting behind someone in front of them, and being able to go a little bit longer on fuel or possibly just take on a little less fuel if they pit early. So that's the way that one's going to pan out, probably in that class. However, in GS class, Kevin, as you know, it's just a little bit of a different situation when it comes to the draft in those cars.
Yes, the draft here for the Mustangs is not super effective to really kind of get you a good spot over somebody who's about equal speed. So it's going to be a challenging battle for drivers to really kind of take advantage of the draft and use that to their advantage.
Yeah, and it's really unfortunate, but I think that's just going to go to show that strategic driving is really going to come into play, whether it be through your pit stops or just waiting for the mistake of someone in front. And like you said, with the slippery infield course, it's definitely it's definitely going to cause a few guys to have the car step out on them. Well, I'm seeing them actually get up on the grid right now, so why don't we go back to that grid that we were just about to run down. And I believe we need to do them 6 at a time. I possibly had that wrong. The director might want to correct me.
Well, our GS leader and overall pole position qualifier is Brian Stradbeck with a 140.3. On the outside of the first row will be Steve Browne with a 140.7. Third is Duljan Boldrin with a 148. Eric Smith is fourth with a 140.0. Fifth will be Germana Fanador with a 141.3. And sixth will be Jason Breifogel with a 141.4.
And we seem to be having a few technical problems. We have to apologize if you're not seeing the grid that we're calling. In the meantime, seventh is Russell Clayson. Mr. Cannonball is hoping to try and carve his way through the field. And eighth, we have Scott Bersher, who we talked to a little bit before the race. Then ninth, it's Chris Burt, who's kind of been a silent but slightly anonymous driver. Hopefully he'll be able to get that black and white Mustang a little bit higher up. 10th is Phil Schrader. Then 11th, we have Darren Jump, who is a bit of a newcomer here. And 12th is Andrew Allen.
13th is our current GS Championship leader, Dan Rash. 14th is Arthur Hermont. And rounding out the GS field will be Tim Brokaw.
Then meanwhile, on the ST side, we have Ayrton Ellis, who is coming back from a bit of a break and coming back in force as he takes the pole position. Then lining up beside him in ST in second place is James Stevenson. Then in third, it's Stefan Owergaard. Fourth, we have Dexter Castro. Fifth, it's Alex Bilal. And lining up on the outside of row 3 and sixth, it's Arthur Chan.
Seventh in the ST field is Eric Biggs. 8th is Stefan Morian. 9th is Matthew Reinhold. 10th, Hang Ho Tao. 11th, William Randleman. 12th, Chuck Johnson.
And then 13th is David Wammond. 14th is Michael Hatton. 15th is Tom Eckline. 16th is Ed Verras. And then it looks like we have a non-qualifier in the final position of Stephen Asbury. Well, Kevin, they're just about getting to the final portions of this pace lap, so they're going to be lining up very quickly here. We'll have to watch, see how things go, and you'll probably. Would you like to take us off on the GS drivers, and I'll keep an eye on the ST class?
Will do. So the GS field is forming up behind the pace car as they are on the banking between turns 1 and 2. And they're rolling backwards through famous Indy turn 1. A nice controlled 60 miles an hour. The grid looks like it is fully formed up, so we're just waiting on the pace car to pull off, which it does now. Brian Stradbeck is in control of the field as he begins to slowly increase the speed. And we have a green, and they're off. Stradbeck gets a great start. Steve Browne is caught a little bit napping, but he's going to be able to resume. And we see drivers moving side by side. Looks like everybody's clean so far as Steve Browne goes defensive a little bit to protect his second place as they approach the braking zone for turn 1.
And just in time for that, the ST cars take off as they get the green flag. Ayrton Ellis is leading them off. He had a bit of a lead on there, and Stefan Owergaard had a really good start. He's going 3 wide into turn 1 as the leaders are all side by side under braking. Stefan Owergaard stakes a huge lead. He might overshoot it, though. He went way heavy into there. In fact, he does. He goes into the grass. Ayrton Ellis is leading them off.
Sorry, Joe, but we have Duljan Boldrin and Eric Smith went side by side in turn 4, attacked, and went off into the gravel. They're way down in the back of the GS field now.
In the meantime, Eric Biggs has overtaken James Stevenson for that second place position, so bad start for James Stevenson. Meanwhile, Ayrton Ellis is way out in the front as they head into turn 6 for ST class, so obviously trying to pull a Sebastian Vettel here.
And Brian Strodbeck and Steve Browne have quite the gap on the rest of the GS field right now as they run into the S's of turn 8, 9, and 10, and 11. And Steve Browne is looking pretty good sitting behind Brian Strodbeck right now.
And let's stay with the Mustang class, but thankfully it looks like that ST cars are all very cleanly through besides that off by Stefan Overgaard, so not much to report there as they get things shuffled together. But yeah, Steve Browne is definitely hunting down Brian Strodbeck currently in that first and second position. In the meantime, Eric Smith has lost a lot of positions, it looks like, as he has slipped down to what looks like maybe 5th or 6th.
Yeah, I'm showing Eric Smith in 11th place right now, so that's really hurt him badly.
In fact, he's got Dan Rash right behind him. In fact, Dan Rash looks like he is trying to bump draft. I've never attempted that in the Mustangs. Kevin, does that even work?
Well, every time I've tried it, it's failed miserably. So it's not something that I personally want to keep doing. But if it's working for Dan and Eric, I say they should keep trying to run it.
Well, when Darren had a very hairy moment there as they go by Phil Schrader, who somehow spun into turn 1. I didn't quite see what happened, just caught him turned around. But everyone manages to avoid him and get around safely as he gets back on the track. We're going to a replay of that real quickly here now. Looks like he just barely caught the grass there. Yeah, just on the outside. Unfortunate. That shows just how precise you got to be around this place. Let's get back up to the front, though, and see how things are going. Jason Breifogel's not doing too bad. Moved himself up into a podium position there, Kevin.
Yeah, he's running well. Eric Smith has recovered well, and he's sitting in 10th right now. He's managed to move in front of Darren Jump and Arthur Hermont, so Eric's going to be attempting to recover as well as he can. And the mid group of these drivers are spreading out a little bit on this tricky infield.
Two cars that I do see together that aren't so spread out is Russell Clayson and German Fanador in these very similarly painted V Apex Mustangs. These guys are teammates, as you could probably surmise. Do you think that we'll see some team tactics between these two guys, or do you think it's every man for himself today?
Well, I would imagine that between these two, they're probably just going to try and team up, use the draft as much as possible, and not try and race side by side in the infield unless something, an obvious mistake happens. So I think this is a situation where we're not going to hear Fernando is faster than you.
Not likely. And Russell certainly likes to race. Now, just to help our viewers out, German Fanador is the gray topped car and Russell Clayson is the purple topped car. I know that gets very confusing, but we'll try to keep you up to date as Russell closes in on the back of German coming into turn 4 there. Looks to the outside, but German closes him off. That's a very hard place to try and get around. And they're coming around to turn 5, which is going to be another flat-out right-hander here. Is Russell going to take another look on the inside? German continues to defend. This is going to slow these guys down. They're only on lap 3, so it's very early days to be defending so aggressively, Kevin.
Yeah, and I just caught a big slide from Andrew Allen coming out of turns 4 and 5. He wound up cutting across the grass sideways and managed to rejoin in the track in front of Eric Smith. So his heart rate is probably bumping pretty fast right now, as it looks like Mr. Unlucky, Arthur Chan, is having internet problems once again. And now I see Eric Smith making a move on Andrew Allen into the S's, and it looks like Eric Smith's got that position.
Great stuff from him. In the meantime, let's hop back to ST since we haven't talked about them in a while. Ayrton Ellis has definitely pulled himself a very good lead off of James Stevenson, who's still holding on to second. Somehow he got by Eric Biggs, who is now back into third. Eric does have his teammate Dexter Castro in that 49 Motorsports machine closely behind him in fifth. Or I'm sorry, that's fourth position. So that is a close battle going on right now. But Ayrton Ellis definitely has been able to get away and break that draft early on. I think that's going to be very key.
And Russell Clayson passed his teammate German Fanador, and I'm watching, Chris Burt and Scott Berkshire side by side as they in the braking zone for turn 1. And it looks like Scott Berkshire is going to hold that position off from Chris Burt, who got an absolute stonker of a run on out of turn 12.
Really good job for Scott defending on the outside of that. He didn't seem like he covered it, but held on to it still. but coming around turn 4, he's still within striking distance. In fact, all these cars are quite close together. We've got, it looks like German and Fanador up at the front, then Russell up front, then German, and then we've got Chris Burrett and Scott, as you mentioned, and then behind them all is Dualjean Boldrin following up in 8th position.
Yeah, I think Dualjean's probably kicking himself a little bit. He's lost a bit of track position since he and Eric Smith went off, but they've recovered, and they are running in, I believe, 8th and 9th positions here with Dualjean behind this big pack. So Dualjean, he's got to be a little bit careful trying to move through this group here, although I suspect he's probably eager to try and move forward.
Well, at least it's better to be losing those positions here than someplace like Mosport, because he is going to at least get some passing opportunities. Chris Burrett had a bit of a moment there coming around the penultimate corner. Well, not quite the penultimate corner. That was 11. Got a little bit sideways. He was very close to Scott Burscher and managed to lose quite a bit of time. That's going to give Dualjean Boldrin just a little bit of a run, but it doesn't look like he's close enough to do anything right now.
And yeah, it looks like this GS field has sorted out a little bit this lap, and so we're probably seeing these guys start to settle down a little bit as their tire pressures should be fully up to snuff right now, and the car should be as balanced as it's going to get.
Well, I'm looking up front, though, in the GS class, and I see that Steve Browne is actually still holding on to the back of Brian Strodbeck. I figured that Brian would be able to run away a little bit more with this thing, but Steve's got his number. Looking at the last lap time, Brian was only a 10th faster, so the draft could be having just a little bit of an effect, but whatever the case, Steve is making Brian work for this one.
Yeah, Steve is actually running faster laps than his qualifying lap, so that's always good when you're doing that. But you know, I think right now these guys are probably just trying to run clean and build on the gap that they've created over the cars behind them, and you know, really try and ice this as soon as they can, if they can. This is looking really good for Steve Browne as he's able to just kind of settle in behind Brian Strodbeck and run clean laps as I watch him get loose coming out of the very tight turn 10. And you know, and Brian Strodbeck, no doubt, he's probably just taking it a little bit easy, but this is good for these guys because they can make sure that they try and keep their tires working as well as possible for as long as possible through this race.
Well, I'm looking back down at the ST field to meet with them once again, and Stefan Moriane is trying to currently hunt down Matthew Reinhold, and that is for the 7th and 8th positions. It looks like he was a little bit closer before I said something, but of course commentators curse. He had a bit of a spin coming on the back straightaway, not a spin, a bit of wheel spin rather. So he's lost a bit of time. That's put a bit of a gap there. But Stefan Moriane, I talked to him quite a bit during some of the practice. I went down onto the track and put a few laps in and was talking about the broadcast. He has got a wry sense of humor on him. He was when he mentioned that he hadn't seen me out on the track. I said, "Yeah, I'm doing the broadcasting with CESES." He said, "Oh, really? That's what you've been up to."
And I missed exactly how this happened, but Scott Burscher's apparently hit somebody. The front end of his car is completely rearranged right now.
Yeah, and he's in the midst of a big pack there, that same pack that he was with before, and Chris Burrett is trying to look on the outside of German and Fanador. That is for the 7th and 8th, or 6th and 7th position, I think. But all these guys are very much backed up, it looks like. There's something of a truly train going on there, Kevin.
Yeah, and it looks like the damage from Scott came when he got into the rear end of German at Fanador, breaking into turn 1. That got German very loose, and in front of them was Jason Breifogel also getting... no, he was okay. Russell Clayson also looked a little slow. Russell got the dreaded slowdown penalty out of turn 1, so that's what caused this truly train to form up.
Aha. Well, as you were talking, Dualjean Boldrin had a very opportunistic move. Or, I'm sorry, he didn't have an opportunistic move. Eric Smith was the one with the opportunistic move as he got by Dualjean Boldrin, who got slowed up when Scott Burscher was under attack there. So, good on him. He's trying to make some spots up. He's back up to 9th, so not a lot of progress yet because we're only on lap 6, but at least he's starting to get some of those positions back.
And... Yes, absolutely. And Eric Smith, as you said, has moved in front of him. We also know that Dan Rash has moved up a couple of positions. He's sitting in 11th currently in front of Darren Jump and Tim Brokaw, who until recently was driving an MX-5.
Yes, and we see a bit of switching between classes every now and then, though I know our organizer tries to dissuade it mid-season just to keep people consistent. In the meantime, I'm checking out on any battles going on in the ST class, looking down at that one between Matthew Reinhold and Stefan Mourier. Stefan's got a good draft coming onto the front straightaway. Now he's got track position as he moves to the inside. When they come across the start-finish line there, they're coming down to the braking zone. Is he going to be able to hold on to it? He's got to go deep into it and be able to cover off that second left-hander. Yes, he does. He enables himself to move ahead of Reinhold. So that's one more position for Mourier, moving up into 7th.
And I'm watching the battle right now between German Afanador and Chris Burrett. I do admit that I do like the paint scheme on Chris Burrett's car. The black and white maple leaf is very pleasing to the eye, even though I'm not Canadian, and I refuse to have anything to do with them.
You're a little farther north than I am, so you're closer than I. But yes, I agree. I love that paint scheme. And German's doing a pretty good job to hold off Chris here. He wasn't able to hold off Russell, but I have to imagine that had something to do with them being teammates, undoubtedly. Chris has seemed to have got a decent run, but he's not going to be close enough to make anything happen. The draft is going to be helping him. I suspect he's going to be closing under braking. He takes a look on the inside anyways. He is very far back. This is going to be a wild dive. He manages to outbrake German. Is he going to be able to hold it under braking? Yes, he does. He keeps it tight in, doesn't run into him, doesn't run off the track. And now he's got the inside of this next corner coming around 3, which is going to be inside for 4 as well. All he has to do is keep it clean and cover him off. Slides on in front of German Afanador. Really good move, but German's not done yet. He's looking on the inside. Is he going to try and tuck it in? Ooh, it's very tight as they come around 5. Under braking, they both go to the inside of 6. And German still doesn't have it back. But wow, good stuff from Chris Burrett there.
And you may have seen a battle behind them as Eric Smith made a textbook pass on the inside of Andrew Allen into turn 1. So he's gotten that position away, and he's got his sights set on Scott Berkshire in front of him.
And Berkshire's top speed is definitely compromised with that banged up front end. He's looking like Russell Clayson from 2 weeks ago. Eric wasn't able to capitalize on that, so he slots in back behind him into his 8th place position. He's going to want to continue to move up and steadily work his way through this field to get back to where he started. In the meantime, it looks like Allen wants his spot back as well as he closes up. They're coming onto the front straight away now, Kevin. And looks like Eric didn't quite get a good enough exit on there.
No, and I'm hearing that we're having a little bit of difficulties with our stream right now, so apologize, and we hope to get that sorted out as quickly as possible. Right now I'm taking a look at German Afanador, who has a fantastic draft on Chris Burrett, and I think, yes, there he goes. He's looking to the inside as they approach turn 1. Is he going to have the speed to be able to do this as they approach the braking zone here? German's going to have to get really late on the brakes, and he is. They're very close side by side, but it looks like Bert's going to have it. Bert comes across, they tap. Bert goes around, and both German Afanador and Bert are off in the weeds. Looks like they're both going to be able to resume. Afanador is going. Bert's rolling as well. But oh boy, that one just went all south for both of them.
And while that chaos was going on, Eric Smith had managed to move himself up another position, which is now 2 more positions as he inherits those 2 wrecked cars slots. But, wow, things are all falling apart in the GS class. No, patience has kind of been thrown out the window now that things have kind of, people have settled down of the initial laps there.
Yeah, and we just kind of saw evidence of just how difficult it is to pass at this track. If both drivers aren't willing to give as much room as possible, it's pretty easy to run into the other guy.
Well, I'm looking at the ST field, and it looks like Stefan Overgaard is working his way back up through. He just passed Alex Bilal. This must be a bit of a bogey track for Bilal because he hasn't been performing how I expected. Usually his speed is up with the likes of James Stevenson and Carl Williamson. Not so is the case today. He's slipped down what looks like into 6th position, but Stefan Overgaard, after his very early mistake, which sent him, what I'm guessing is all the way to the back, has worked his way up into the top 5. So I'm guessing that if he can just get back into the draft of the leaders, or maybe capitalize on a yellow, we could see Stefan Overgaard back into this thing.
Yeah, it sounds like Stefan's having a good run, and we like Stefan as he helps us out at GSRC with commentating, and always good to see him running a good race right now.
Yeah, that blue Asbury Motorsports machine, or maybe we should just call it the Smurf since he has an affinity for them, is just steadily climbing and climbing. Hopefully he can get his way up to the Smurfy top or something, I don't know. Otherwise, let's see if there's any other battles going on. The ST guys, working my way through that field, see if there's anything close going on. Those guys are, it's almost the reverse of what we usually see, Kevin. Usually the GS guys are all kind of single file, but instead the ST guys are the single file this time, and the GS guys are the one that are just having constant battles going on.
Well, kudos to the ST guys for having a good run. I'm certain that this is an easy place to probably get a little enthusiastic for these guys. For the GS drivers, I know that the Mustang is a real tank of a car to drive around here, and it's real difficult. And it seems like the grip levels in the car can change from corner to corner. So sometimes you're never really sure about what you have underneath you. And I think these guys are having to battle with that and with aggressive drivers around them at the same time.
Well, I'm looking back into the GS guys, and Andrew Allen is closed back up on Scott Burscher. I think Scott's going to have to get that damage fixed or something here, because he's really been compromised. And it sounds like we do have our technical difficulties fixed for now, knocking on wood. In the meantime, Andrew Allen's closing up under the draft as they head onto the front straightaway, coming out of that final corner. Is he going to look to the inside or the outside? He's getting right up on the bumper of Burscher. He's got a lift. And he might actually be trying to bump draft, it looks like. He's continuing to stay behind. Yes, he takes a peek on the inside coming into turn 1 here. He's got a little bit of the speed, but he doesn't have him under braking. He backs off and decides to fight another day. I'm pretty sure that Allen's going to want to get by soon, because I don't think that Burscher has got the speed that Allen wants here, Kevin.
Yeah, I'm wondering if with that damage, as we see Andrew Allen make a brave move on the inside of a turn 4, does he have that position there? Not quite. They're still side by side through 5 before Burscher lets Allen by. So an aggressive move, and that gives Allen the position. As I see Doljan Boldrin takes a look on the outside of Burscher, but that's not going to work, and that looks like it's going to allow a Fanador to move up to the inside as they come onto the main straight side by side. That's an interesting place to try and make a pass.
Yeah, I was going to say, I didn't think that was going to work no matter what he did, unless there was a mistake, because around the outside of that long corner, he just was not going to gain any ground. So it definitely has gone wrong, as that allows German Fanador to make up just a bit of ground after his earlier contact. I see behind him, Dan Rash is currently holding 10th, so his attempt to maybe try and gain some points from his sort of meager drive today due to his injuries is paying off. He's managed to stay out of trouble so far, again, knocking on that wood.
Yeah, he's looking pretty good, but the driver that's looking the best out there is Brian Strodbeck. He now has a little bit over 2-second lead over Steve Browne, and they almost about a 14-second lead over the third-place car of Jason Breifogel. So it's all going Strodbeck's way right now.
And the last time that I had looked at Strodbeck, which is about a lap or two ago, he was still right with Steve. I suspect this traffic has come into play. They're right now getting into the back markers of the ST guys, and Brian is navigating on the inside of that looks like Ed Voras there in the ST car. In the meantime, he's got David Whamman coming up, which he probably is going to clear as they come to the back straightaway. We've seen this happen before, Kevin, that navigating the opposite class is very much a skill that can make or break your race, especially up at the front.
Yeah, and especially at a track like this one, where there's these long stretches of track that it's almost impossible to pass the ST car if you're in the GS Mustang without the ST car pulling completely over for you, which they are probably unlikely to do, as they're pretty interested in their own race at the moment. So how these drivers can work the traffic in these tight sections is really going to affect their race, as I'm watching Brian Strodbeck just kind of gap once again. He's looking really clean. His car's looking really settled.
I've hopped back to the ST, and somewhere along the line that we missed, Ayrton Ellis has been closed down by James Stevenson, who is now 1.1 seconds back. So somewhere along the line, Ayrton possibly made a mistake, or James had turned the afterburners on. We know James has that capability from time to time, but that GSRC machine is under threat for first place in ST.
And it looks like Eric Biggs is having a great run chasing his teammate Dexter Castro, for third overall in class. Maybe these guys can work their teammate magic together and try and catch the two cars in front of them, Ayrton Ellis and James Stevenson.
Now, at some point along the line, those guys have swapped places, because I know Eric Biggs was in third before, and that could be team tactics. I'm not entirely sure how much they had planned beforehand, because maybe they're just trying to conserve fuel with one another, let each other use the draft from time to time. Dexter Castro goes off. This is going to let Eric Biggs back on by. Dexter plays it very safe, and I have to say that's very commendable. It would have been easy to try and maybe slip back onto the track, but that could have definitely gone wrong, even though he had room. But this is going to hurt Dexter Castro, who slipped back down into fourth.
And for Dexter, he's probably not within the clutches yet of Stefan Overgaard. So he, as long as he's able to focus and put some laps under, put some good sectors underneath him, he should be able to catch up with his teammate and try again to, try and catch up with the leaders, Ayrton Ellis and James Stevenson. As do my eyes deceive me, James Stevenson has just passed Ayrton Ellis into turn one.
It looks like he had managed to get a nice draft down the front straightaway and made a very brave pass into one. So your eyes do not deceive you. James Stevenson is schooling Ayrton Ellis, who apparently is a little bit rusty. You can see it there as he just ekes on by the inside. Very good stuff from Stevenson. He's never afraid of making a gutsy move with his Australian blood in him. Ayrton, though young he may be, is definitely a fast driver. I don't think he's going to take that sitting down. But I've seen, we watched recently Ayrton in the MX-5 Super Showdown. I think we're going to see also a very smart Ayrton today. He has started to take a little bit of tactical driving instead of just constantly attacking. I'm wondering if we're going to see him just kind of hang behind James now that he's gotten ahead.
Well, that's the hope. There's still 67 minutes left in this race, so he's got a lot of time. He can't win it in the next corner, but he could sure lose it. So Ayrton needs to keep smart and try and stay with James Stevenson. And the best plan for these two drivers right now is to try and work together and drive away from the rest of the ST field as much as possible, kind of like the top two in the GS field have done.
And I think they've pretty obviously driven away quite cleanly so far. But yeah, I agree. If they start battling, it won't be hard for them to catch up, as Stevenson had just illustrated. Speaking of which, though, it's about, 28 minutes in or so, 27 minutes in. So we're getting very close to the...
Ayrton Ellis is making a move on the inside in turn one. Sorry about that. So they are not going to work together. Ellis wants the lead back, and he's taking it back into turn one.
That surprises me. But I guess Ayrton is not interested in working together, like you said. But yeah, I saw that happening as I was working, and that distracted me. Yeah, we're getting very close to the pit window for both classes. All it takes right now is yellow, and I think you're going to see a whole bunch of people dive in. But it's actually been green since the start, which surprises me a bit. It's not unusual for this track, but so far it's been complete opposite to 2 weeks ago, Kevin.
And thank goodness for that. We were discussing about that, talking about that in our pre-production meeting, just how the drivers had such a difficult time last round, at Watkins Glen, having a difficult time keeping the race under green flag. But so far, 25 minutes into this race, they've been able to do that and kind of get it sorted out. But I agree with you. These drivers are probably now going to try and run this first stint as long as they possibly can until their car's almost hiccuping on fuel, and hope that they might see a yellow until then, so that they can duck in and serve their pit stop under yellow with that long pit lane. Serve it under yellow instead of losing all the time under green flag.
Now I want to hop back a little bit to 5th place, to Stefan Overgaard in the ST class. Now he has won both the previous races here at Indianapolis for ST, and I don't know what he's gaining on the leaders currently, but he's actually already caught up to Alex Bilbao in 4th, who is right behind Dexter Castro and Eric Biggs. So he's more or less up to this lead pack already. And I think he's showing some very good speed. I wouldn't count him out for a possible win.
No, I agree with you. Stefan is definitely very good at this track. He knows how to work the draft. He knows how to be fast and consistent in the MX-5, and those are all skills that he desperately needs. It looks like I'm seeing Dexter Castro and Eric Biggs give each other a little bump trap down the main straight to try and help themselves out.
I don't know why those guys continue to try that, because every time I've seen people attempt that in the MX-5s, it seems to hurt more than it helps, especially if you push too hard and damage the front of your car. The MX-5s really suffer if you hurt the aero. But we haven't seen a whole lot going on, or we haven't stepped back to the ST guys or GS guys in quite a while. Kevin, can you see anybody battling up and down in the Mustangs?
Well, Eric Smith has been trying to chase down Russell Clayson for 4th position. That's where Russell is sitting right now. They've been about a half second apart from each other for the last few laps, I've noticed. But they are in the back half of the ST field that they're lapping right now. So both of these drivers are probably going to try and look to capitalize on the openings that they see with traffic in front of them, since they can't rely on pure speed right now.
And I think it's worth pointing out that Russell is probably going to be wanting to play a bit of a patient game this week, because with Dan Rash sort of being a bit out of contention, obviously he's not going to have the speed. This is a good opportunity for him to make some points. And if he wrecks out, or if something happens and he's sent down the field, that's going to be a big opportunity to overtake Dan in the points thrown away, as you see them overtaking an ST car here, that little red MX-5. So I'd be curious to see how hard he's going to fight with the likes of Eric Smith, who's continuing to close in, it looks like.
Well, I'm going to agree with you, and I think that if I were in Russell's shoes right now with Dan Rash dealing with the injury after his surgery, and his other championship contender, J.D. Baumgartner, not in the race today, Russell just needs to make sure that he just gets a good finish, because every point that he earns is going to send him just scoot right to the top of the championship standings. So I think, making sure that he finishes well is better than finishing first for him right today.
And it's really surprised me as we watch them go down the front straightaway and Eric starts to close up a little bit under the draft. It looks like Russell went just slightly defensive, but he comes back to the line. It's really surprised me, because Russell, in the first few races, was having some incidents and some run-ins with other drivers. So I thought he had kind of set himself out of the running, kind of like how Steve did. But he's really come back with a vengeance, just with his good finishes, like you mentioned. And I would hope that by now that lesson has sort of solidified how important it is, because we've seen in both classes that can play a huge part. And Eric Smith is getting closer and closer to the back of that Mustang. I think he's going to be wanting to take a peek on one side of that V Apex machine sooner or later here.
Yeah, I think so, but he's going to have to take it easy, and Russell is never an easy car to pass. We know that Russell is fantastically good at being very, very deep on the brakes, and that always is a difficult proposition to overtake somebody when they're that good on the brakes. And so we'll just have to see how Eric Smith wants to play this one.
And Eric's a guy that I would say by now that, and I don't want to curse him, unfortunately, but I feel like he's finally started to overcome his endurance demons. Whoa, as Russell makes a mistake and Eric closes up, but he doesn't take the opportunity, and that just goes to illustrate my point. He knows when to go and when to not now, and just kind of think about the long game, because now he's going to have that draft coming around the front straightaway here, and I think that's going to at least bring him up side by side with Russell. And I think Eric Smith is starting to become the complete package here. He's getting more consistent. He's already got the speed. He's managed to stay out of trouble as he looks to the inside of Russell coming down the front straightaway, Kevin.
Yeah, that was perfectly done. He had a great draft on Russell, and he's moved to the inside, and I think he's got the advantage right now as they approach into turn one. Let's see who's braver under brakes. It looks like it's going to be Russell, as usual, but Eric Smith is able to stay side by side. He's got the line, and he takes the position as he gets a little bit of oversteer through the corner. Well done, Eric Smith.
Absolutely, had it even before turn two. And whoa, Russell has another bobble coming out. It looks like he might be struggling with the exits of the corners. That's twice now within a lap that he's gotten kind of loose. Do you think the rear ends are getting a little too hot on that Mustang?
Entirely possible. We know that the Mustang does struggle with oversteer at this track, and with how aggressive Russell is under brakes, that means that he usually needs a little bit of a looser car, and it may be that he's just worn those rears off right now.
Yeah, I'm seeing slide around turn 7 there, coming onto the back straightaway as I watch him. So it definitely looks like his car is just getting pretty slippery. And that's probably what made him so vulnerable to Erik, who is now currently up into 4th place. So after sliding all the way down the field, Erik Smith is making his own comeback. This just seems to be the theme throughout the field in both classes in this series. Eric's probably going to want to be looking for a podium, but we haven't looked at the ST guys in a while, so let's take a look over there and see what's going on. I know Ayrton and James Stevenson were battling a little bit earlier, and as I look, they are still right close together. Ayrton continues to hold the lead position, though.
Well, and we should mention that while we were watching the GS field, Eric Bilal moved in front of both Dexter Castro and Eric Biggs to take over 3rd place. So our Brazilian is fast as usual.
Yeah, like I said, I would not put it past him. He's definitely got everything together, and wow, by getting past 2 of the 49 Motorsports machine cars is no mean feat, because those guys share a lot of good information amongst one another.
And I just want to apologize real quickly. Apparently I called Alex Eric, so sorry about that one.
It's okay. It does get confusing out here. It looks like those guys are not going to take that sitting down, though, because Eric is still right on top of Alex, and he's got Dexter Castro backing him up. These guys are possibly going to gang up on Alex once they get the draft coming up here. I see that we have our other co-commentator showing up here. I'm not sure if he's ready to speak. Richard, can you hear us?
Hi, guys. Can you hear me? I really have to apologize. I overslept. Would you believe it?
So, looks like you pulled a bit of a Giancarlo this week. We're glad to have you with us, Richard.
Thank you.
Well, you've been missing an absolutely fantastic race so far right now. There's battles all over the place. One guy I wanted to mention is Stefan Morian, who is desperately straining every sinew. I think he's sitting in 7th in the ST field. He's straining every sinew right now to catch that battle for 3rd position, because he's just on the outside edge of that draft right there. So I'm sure he wants to be moving forward, and he's running just as quickly as he can right now.
Absolutely. And I will note that Eric Biggs and Dexter Castro have not really been fighting too terribly much, as Eric closes up and goes a little bit hot under brakes into turn 1 behind Alex there. But those two, I'm pretty sure at this point, after a bit of watching, that they're conserving gas here. They're playing a long game and hoping to maybe jump a few people in the pits together.
Guys, as I'm looking at the situation, just catching up, I note that Stefan Overgaard is caught up with Dexter Castro, and he's making a challenge on Dexter as we speak.
Yeah, Stefan had a mistake in the very first corner, actually. He went for the lead in the first turn and just overshot it, and that sent him all the way down the field. But he has made a storming race back up through the field, and has managed to get himself back up in a 6th at least. He's looking at the top 5 easily, as you pointed out, if he can just get by these 249 machines.
And another change that's happened in the ST field is that James Stevenson has overtaken Ayrton Ellis and now leads the race, unless I'm very much mistaken, in the ST class.
You are correct, and you missed a little bit earlier. These two have kind of been swapping back and forth. I was commenting how we had watched Ayrton in the MX-5 Super Showdown was playing a very smart game with his fuel, and I expected him to do that here and just kind of hang behind James, but he's been battling out with him a lot, which surprises me.
Well, excellent stuff from these two, and Alex Balea, of course, in 3rd place. So I'm not sure what's happening in the GS class. No doubt Kevin will inform us on that front.
Well, at the front of the GS field, Brian Strodbeck and Steve Browne currently have about a 3.5 second gap from each other right now. That gap has been growing and closing as they battle lapped ST cars. But the 3rd place car, Jason Breifogel, is about 21 seconds behind Brian Strodbeck right now. So they've done a good job of putting quite the gap on the rest of the field. And we do see that Erik Smith is definitely very, very quick in the GS car today. He is definitely, his radical experience seems to have been helping him out as he's been able to move back to the field to get back to his 4th position.
Absolutely. I'm really proud to see him improve the way he has. It's been neat kind of watching his skill set grow as each race goes by, and the mistakes continue to lessen and lessen. Hopefully I'm not cursing him as we see him go just a little bit wide into turn 6 there. But I'm looking at the GS field, and I did notice that Arthur Chan is back with us. I think you mentioned that he had some more connection issues. And we've got, so he's 2 laps down, so he's trying to make a comeback. He did manage to make a comeback 2 weeks ago, so it's not beyond him to get a little bit lucky, even though he is Mr. Unlucky. In the meantime, Alex Bilbao is under threat by Eric Biggs as he was looking for that 3rd position in ST class. Richard?
That is correct, and we have a little train here of 4 cars. We have Stefan Overgaard, who's just behind Dexter Castro, and he's right in the draft now, so we should be seeing some action from him. Although, as I look, I see Dexter actually pulling away a little bit. I'm wondering if Stefan's car has got any damage. I don't know. Eric Biggs, sorry, is the guy that they are following. Is just in front there. And then we have, who is that in front of them there?
I'm sorry to interrupt, but Eric Biggs was making a pass attempt on Alex Bilbao there. He's on the outside of turn 2 now, but he's going to have the inside of the next corner. This is slowing Bilbao down, actually, and that could possibly give Dexter a chance as he does get alongside on the inside of Alex. This is going to demote Alex 2 more places, it looks like, Richard.
Yes, now I'm catching up with the action. I see that Dexter is in the Team 49 Motorsports colors. And Eric Biggs, who was a Team 49 Motorsports car, is in, at least on my screen, showing a totally different color scheme. So I'm not quite sure if I've got the correct scheme for Eric. But nonetheless, he's ahead of Castro. And it looks like they both have passed Alex Bilbao, Joe.
That looks like some grade A team tactics to me. We were talking a little bit earlier that these two guys seemed to be not battling each other and just kind of staying in line. So I'm pretty sure that they're going to be trying to save some fuel later on down the line. And they've got Jason Breifel closing up on these two. That's allowed Stefan Overgaard to kind of get in the mix of things. He's probably going to want to hold on to the tail of that Mustang, get right up on Alex Bilbao, and maybe continue to move himself up the way. I mentioned earlier in the broadcast, you missed it, Richard, that Stefan Overgaard is the only winner that we've had here at Indianapolis in the ST class, and it looks like Stefan's actually heading into the pits right now.
Yes, Stefan is heading into the pits. There must be something wrong with his car because he falls off the pace even when he's in the draft, so I'm not quite sure what's going on there, but we shall keep an eye on him while he's doing his pit stop.
And our walking wounded driver of Dan Rash has steadily used his heel to work his way up into 7th place in the GS field. And he looks like he's going to try and make a pass on German of Fanador as German got caught up in some ST traffic. But German went defensive, Dan Rash held back, and they're going to file through turn 1 in the same order. So even though Dan Rash is not feeling his best today, as we would expect after surgery, he's still having a heck of a great race.
Yeah, and he was actually closing up mid-corner on German, interestingly. That struck me as a little odd. You see him do it again there, coming through 4. He's getting very close. Is he going to take a look? No, he backs off. He's being a very tepid Dan Rash compared to what we're used to seeing, which doesn't surprise me, as you said, with his injury. I'm almost wonder if he's been listening to our broadcast and has decided he doesn't want to give away the points that we mentioned and maybe try and chase down Russell.
Could be. I do think that, a bunch of the GS Mustangs are experiencing tire troubles. I'm seeing guys get a lot of corner entry understeer and a lot of corner exit oversteer, and that indicates worn tires at both ends. And I kind of think that maybe if Dan Rash, if he's just been sitting there kind of driving easy because of his injury, he may have some relatively fresh rubber under his car, and so he may be the fastest car on track right now.
That's a strategy that I hadn't considered. It could be incredibly clever, even if unintentionally so. In the meantime, that Frito-Main car is closing up right on the back of that V-Apex Mustang. He's getting right up on the bumper, but he lifts and lets off as they head into the final corner. So I'm curious to see if he's going to make a move this time or not, because he closes in once again, and whoa, he gives him a tap, sets him loose. That was unusual, Kevin.
And I think that was intentional. I see Dan Rash getting on the radio right now, There's a huge gap between them as they're very much on either side of the track right now, but they both go pretty deep. Dan Rash stays very, very wide. German Afanador, he may have gotten a cut course penalty as he chopped quite a bit of that corner.
I was thinking the exact same thing. They both managed to definitely lose some time because Scott Bersher even caught up with him with his lack of top speed. So this is slowing them down, and now German is just going to let him by. That's interesting. He definitely moved to the outside. I couldn't quite make out what they were saying on the radio. Was he telling him to go on by?
Sounds like he got a slow down penalty, or at least it looks like it. As, that's the only thing I can figure right now.
Well, this has not been German Afanador's day. Where did he start in the qualifying? He, let's see.
5th is where he qualified.
So he's only lost one position, but he was a little bit higher up earlier from what I recall. Just doesn't seem like he's had a whole lot of luck defending from guys. It's like he hasn't been making forward progress for most of this race. So he might be fighting with his car. You mentioned trying to get the setup right. Could just be that it's not to his liking. In the meantime, we haven't talked about ST lately. Richard, are there any good battles going on over there?
Well, I can tell you the main action is, as we see a bunch of guys going into the pits, Eric Biggs, Dexter Castro. So that's going to put our good friend Stefan Morian in a place where he's gone many places up. He was in 5th place, sorry. So that puts him into 2nd place. And James Stevenson must be pitting as well, because I noticed that he's dropped down the order as well. So the current order would seem to be Ayrton Ellis, who leads the race now, and Stefan Morien. And then a bunch of guys are in the pits who I will go and check on right now.
And we did have Steve Browne, our 2nd place GS car pit, take 4 tires. Eric Smith is in right now. He's taking left side, so he's probably going to take 4 tires as well. In the ST field, I do want to mention that we saw James Stevenson had a fairly long stop at 36 seconds, whereas Stefan Overgaard had a 29-second stop, and Alex Bilbao had a 27-second stop. So we know those guys are going to jump a couple of positions with their fast stops.
Absolutely, and just want to mention real quickly, we had missed, our cameras had missed earlier that Andrew Allen did tip Scott Bersher in turn 11 and sent him off track, so some not so nice words might be exchanged there, because that didn't look like too nice of a move. In the meantime, we do still have Aaron Ellis leading, but as you mentioned, Richard, I believe that he has not pitted yet, and he's going to probably want to do that soon, because early pit stops are very much the order of the day for these cars.
That's right, and Eric Biggs and Dexter Castro have now left the pits. So Eric Biggs will come out in 3rd place and Dexter in 4th place. Seems like this field must have been quite spread out if these two guys could come out in those places. But let me just double check on that, because it is quite possible that the screen hasn't caught up yet, since it takes a lap or so for the screen in iRacing to catch up to the actual places, Joe.
And in the meantime, I see that Russell Clayson is also headed into the pits out of his, what I believe was a 4th place position. So he's getting his out of the way there, Kevin.
And I'm certain he's going to be taking 4 tires as he comes to a stop in his box, and kind of wondering how much fuel he's going to take as he stands to build on this good position that he's worked up, and is what's sure to be a good championship standing position for him.
Just had a look at Stefan Overgaard, and just as I caught up with him, he was following Ed Voras, who now enters the pit lane. Ed Voras had a big off onto the grass, and no doubt that's encouraged him even further to jump into the pits, Joe.
Yeah, Stefan definitely lost a lot of track position as he is slotted down the field from his pit stop, but he's already moving back up as I'm seeing him scored in 9th place. So he's going to obviously gain that back, but definitely you want to get out into clear air with that tricky back section or infield section of this road course. So he's kind of all by him lonesome right now. I think this is going to probably help him. And I'm hearing word that Russell took 4 tires as far as that pit stops go. So he is back out onto the track. And I understand that Arthur Chan has also had some more problems with his connection.
Yeah, it looks like Arthur Chan once again was disconnected due to his internet, so I'm sure he's having a heck of a day right now. We saw him earlier today in the Blondies race, and I believe he was disconnected at least once there, so he's got to be a little frustrated by this point.
Now, a curious thing going on right now, Richard, is I see that Ayrton Ellis still hasn't pitted and continues to stay out. We're about halfway through this race currently. This is an unusually long time. Do you think he's waiting for a yellow, or what do you think his strategy is?
Well, I haven't seen the beginning portion of the race, so I'm a little bit at a loss, and I have to apologize for that. Certainly, he is out there circulating. He's just coming up on Hang Ho Town now, presumably to put a lap on Hang Ho. I'm not sure what his strategy is at the moment. How long has he been out there since the previous pit stop? Surely has he not pitted at all yet? Because there's only one pit stop normally in these races.
Yeah, I don't believe he has stopped. He is still scored in the lead because James Stevenson is pit and he's currently scored as 5th. So as soon as Ayrton pits, he's going to probably be back with James Stevenson.
All right, let me do some mathematics then. So we've gone 50 minutes in this race out of a 90-minute race, so he's well over halfway. One would imagine that he should be running quite low on fuel now, and he would actually be one of the last people to pit then. But if his fuel is lasting this long as he goes around for yet another lap, Joe, we'll have to wait and see what his strategy is. Maybe he's going to short fuel by the time he does go into the pits and take his 4 tires. That might allow him to get a little bit of a jump on James, who obviously has now will be in a position by that time to regain his leading spot.
And guys, Brian Strodbeck has stopped. He had a slow pit stop as he took all 4 tires, and he rejoins just in front of Steve Browne, who has to check up into turn 1 to avoid hitting him. The battle for the overall lead is on.
Incredibly smart racing from Strodbeck. I watched him do that, and he just positioned his car right at the apex. He knew Steve Browne had to go there, and Steve just had no choice but to slow down. So that gives him track position, but obviously he hasn't quite got his strategy down and squared away, because he lost a fair amount of times. Steve was, at least 3 seconds back before the pit stops?
Steve Browne had fallen back quite a bit. I think he was about 5 or 8 seconds back before the pit stops, but he was definitely 3 seconds faster in the box alone. So we know that Steve Browne had a much better pit run cycle than Brian Strodbeck did.
And I'm seeing, am I seeing correct that Jason Breifogel has moved himself up into the podium position in 3rd?
You did, but Breifogel stopped last time by, so he's fallen back. He is currently about 6th, but after pit stops have been cycled, he is still 3rd.
Alrighty, well let's step back to the ST guys and see if we can find a battle over there as pit stops continue to work their way through. Ayrton Ellis continues to go around as he comes onto the front straightaway. Still has not pitted. I'm starting to wonder, with all his rustiness in this series, if he simply forgot when his pit stop needs to be.
Yeah, it's crazy stuff from him, or maybe it's really smart. We'll have to wait and see on that one, Joe. In the meanwhile, I'm checking on James Stevenson, who, as you know, was battling with Ayrton for the lead, and he is by himself at this point, just going through the final sequence of turns before the oval. So we'll have to wait another little bit. Nothing too exciting happening here at the moment, Joe.
Now, Kevin, I see in your notes that you've made an intriguing observation about the pit strategy.
Oh, well, just that it seems that the fastest pit stops are all being done by Turn 2 Motorsports drivers, and I can't help but think that that was because of their crew chief from last season, who won both championships last season, some guy by the name of Kevin Browne.
I thought his name was Kevin Limburg, but that's neither here nor there. So... I see that Chuck Johnson has worked his way up into 2nd, but I don't believe he's done his pit stop either. In the meantime, James Stevenson is back onto the podium as the ST cars continue to run their pit stops out. William Randleman was in 4th, but he is now in the pits and getting his done and out of the way. I think a lot of these guys were maybe waiting for that yellow flag to come out. We haven't had any yet this race, and I'm sure I've just probably cursed us to have one. But so far it's been, even though we've had quite a bit of action, it's been relatively clean and uneventful from the marshals.
Yes, I was going to ask about that, Joe. Were there any marshals, any yellow flags? Obviously, having overslept and not made the beginning of the broadcast, I apologize to everyone for that. I did not even know whether there was a yellow flag or not, so apologies once again from me on that one, Joe.
No worries. Just hope you got your shut-eye nice and out of the way now. Keep awake for this, which I doubt you will because it's been a lot of excitement around here. Now, William Randleman has exited back out, and it looks like he's done a pretty decent job. I think he should be 5th or 6th, if I said right.
He comes out behind Hang Ho Tao, who, as I look, is still following. He's a lap down, obviously, and he's following Ayrton Ellis, who is still leading the race. I'm going to put my camera on Ayrton to see if he pits this time, guys.
And timing scoring is showing William Randleman in 27th overall, near the end of the ST field.
Aha, so maybe I was incorrect there. Excuse me. In the meantime, let's check back in on our GS leaders because Brian Stradback only has 2.2 seconds ahead of Steve Browne, so he definitely is starting to pull away now that both of these guys have their pit stops done. It's one long sprint from here unless we get ourselves a yellow, and it looks to me that if Brian could just keep it on the track, keep it pointed forward, and not run into traffic in the wrong spot, that he could possibly have this wrapped up.
Yeah, I think the exit of his pit stop when he came out right in front of Steve Browne was probably a little bit of a wake-up call for him because he has thrown down some absolutely storming laps since then, and he's currently got a 3.2-second lead over Steve Browne as they cross the start-finish line this time by. So Brian Stradbeck is really pushing hard right now, or at least he's running very quickly compared to Steve Browne right now. So it's definitely in Stradbeck's hands right now. As long as he doesn't make any big mistakes with traffic, he should be sitting okay.
And as has been the case in pretty much all of the races so far, GS class has been the leaders way up front and everybody else somewhere, who knows where, because Jason Breifogel is a whole 35 seconds behind the leader. And 4 seconds back from him is Eric Smith, who probably will be able to get a threat in if he can chase down Jason. But man, these guys have just worked an incredible gap over everybody else.
Yeah, they are just driving this tough track and tough conditions as well as they can right now, and it's kind of a sight to behold right now.
And as I deal... Oh, go ahead.
I'm going to jump in there and say that Ayrton is still out on the track. He has just lapped Tom Eckline, so he is virtually moving up the field a second time around, and we still have not seen his pit stop. So going through the last sequence of turns now, coming back onto the oval. I will see what's going on by the if he's going to pit this time.
Yes, I heard a collision going somewhere on the course. I can't see exactly where it is. Kevin, have you spotted anything going on there? I'm looking around.
No, I don't see it.
Huh, we'll have to keep our eyes out.
Ayrton is pitting. Ayrton is pitting. Our leader is pitting now.
All right, so after a whole... Actually, yes, he did run all the way to the end of the pit window, so Ayrton seems to be maybe trying to roll the dice and run an exact opposite strategy of James Stevenson there, or at least pretty much everybody. He's run all the way to the end of his gas, it seems, and Stevenson is coming around on the back straightaway now. We'll have to keep our eyes on this and see exactly where they come out. Ayrton is pulling into his pit box right now, Richard.
And guys, I did find out what the accident was. Tim Brokaw in the GS Mustang through turn 1 at Indy. He hit the wall on the outside, spun to the inside wall, bounced off of that, came back across, and completely took out Dexter Castro. And so both of their races must be done.
So I'm watching Jay Stevenson at this point. He's just entered the oval part of the course, and he's coming down the oval section full speed ahead. So where's Ayrton at this point in time?
He's actually just exiting the pit stops.
The pits. That is correct. Sorry, Joe.
It's okay. And James Stevenson has him Oh, no, I'm sorry. That was another red car going by. James Stevenson is still exiting. Ayrton Ellis is coming back on. It's going to be extremely close. Ayrton breaks for that first corner. Where's James Stevenson? He's
James
got
Stevenson
at least...
Just coming into turn 1 as we speak there, Joe. So he is behind Ayrton Ellis. In fact, Ayrton has quite a healthy lead while he gets up to speed there. Sorry, Joe.
It's okay.
Ayrton...
I think that Ayrton has made me eat my words. He's managed to make a much shorter pit stop here in the MX-5s and really made the late pit stops work if he can just get to the end now, because he's going to have much fresher tires than James Stevenson.
That is correct, but at the same time, he obviously has short-fueled the car. So has he made the correct calculations, and does he have enough fuel to get to the end, Joe?
That's going to be the giant question mark, the $25,000 question of the day. And we've got a caution. It sounds like it was possibly due to Tim Brokaw's accident because a car was actually on its lid. No, it was not. It was a car stopped just before the entrance to the oval, from what we're hearing. And it looks like maybe that was Ed Voras as I see him re-entering the track.
Joe, I think that was Dexter Castros. It looks like he blew his engine trying to limp back to pit lane after his big collision with Tim Brokaw. So I think that was just a situation where Dexter was trying to drive a car that should have been parked and was out of oil pressure probably and just detonated that motor.
Yeah, I suspect a bit of frustration from Dexter too, because I could hear him over the radio complaining that that accident should have caused a caution. And honestly, these cars should, since this is iRacing, they can get a tow and their car disappears and they go back to the pits. But we are told if you have a drivable car, you take it back by driving it. Otherwise, a tow is need for caution. I think maybe Dexter was just trying to force the marshal's hands there.
Well, that's possible. It doesn't really serve anybody any good right now to have the yellow flag, except for the car's driver sitting second place in their class.
That's for sure. And that actually will definitely bring James Stevenson back up to the bumper of Ayrton Ellis, although I think the draft could have pulled him in before. But we're going to go to break since we've been going on for quite a while here, and we'll let you guys enjoy the music as we take just a little bit of a break. Welcome back to the Continental Endurance Sports Car Series here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We're just getting ready to come back from yellow as the pace car leads them around that final corner, which is usually turn 1. He's going to duck into the pits. Brian Strodbeck currently leads the GS class. Ayrton Ellis leads the ST. And we should see the pace car dive away, and there he goes. Steve Browne is getting right up on the bumper of Brian Strodbeck. The green flag comes back out, and they're on their way. And Steve is closing up. He got a nice start, but he's probably going to want to make sure not to pass before that start-finish line. He already looks to the inside, though, as they're coming to the front straightaway. He knows this is going to be his only opportunity. He way outbrakes Brian Strodbeck. Can he get as far enough inside of him as he can, though? Yes, he does. He's cleanly by. That's going to give him the opportunity. The lead goes to Steve Browne, Kevin.
A perfect textbook pass. I know that Steve Browne said during the full course yellow he was a little worried about the cars behind him, and the best way to do that is to make sure that everybody's behind him. So he's now got the lead right now, and he can control the pace right now. It's all him.
In the meantime, what's the ST field looking like, Richard?
Well, I've got some wonderful news here. Stefan Overgaard, being with the yellow flag, has closed up to 3rd place. And at the restart, he's overtaken James Stevenson and now sits in 2nd place behind Ayrton Ellis, Joe.
This guy must have a few lucky rabbit's foot buried somewhere around this course, because he's managed to come all the way from the back. He's pulled a Carl Williamson here, although he is already under threat from James Stevenson, who looks like he wants that spot back. In the meantime, they do have GS track trying to come through. Overgaard closes way up on the back of Ayrton there, Richard.
Dan Rash made contact with one of the V Apex cars, and both went sideways, and both have resumed, but that's where you see all that smoke coming from.
Oh, we've got another spinner. It looks like, who is that? That's Phil Schrader that got tipped by Alex Balau.
That's correct, and there's one sitting right in the middle of the track, and James Stevenson, I believe, has hit that car. Or is it another car?
Full course yellow.
Lots of action here.
Oh, and James Stevenson ran into Arthur Herman. I didn't quite catch what happened. I'm going to go back and check to see.
Well, we know that yellows breed yellows, and here's the proof is in the pudding once again as we are back under yellow.
Oh, and James Stevenson was at the wrong place at the wrong time as other cars continued to work their way around. And just goes bad from worse as he continues to bang into Arthur Herman there. Herman got spun around by Rash, which you guys had reported on, and when the ST cars came up upon him, there was just no place for Stevenson to go. I'm pretty sure this is going to be ruining Stevenson's race because his top speed is going to be highly hurt.
Absolutely, Joe. I just saw the back end of that accident. He hit Arthur Herman fair and squared in a T-bone situation. So now we're looking at Ayrton sitting in 1st place comfortably with Dan Rash in between himself and Stefan Overgaard, who's in 2nd place. So looks like the battle for 1st place might be between these two. At the moment, we have Stefan Maurienne, who's moved up the field steadily, sitting in 3rd place, Joe.
Now, we were talking a little bit about this over the break, and I think it was Kevin mentioned that he believes that Ayrton had short-fueled his MX-5 since he waited so late and managed to jump James Stevenson. And I have to agree with once we saw the numbers there. And I'm sorry, I believe it was our director that pointed it out as I'm being corrected. But good ideas never come from him anyways. So, anyways, Ayrton's, I think this is going to play into his hand, Richard. I think that all these cautions, if he gets one more, this could maybe get him all the way, or maybe even just with this one.
Yeah, this is definitely played into Ayrton's hands. The thing is that we were looking for a challenge from James Stevenson on Ayrton after the restart. But what actually happened is that Stefan Maurienne jumped in and took the 2nd place away from James Stevenson as they are back under the yellow now. So Stefan now sits in 2nd, and Stefan Maurienne followed up and now sits in 3rd place with Alex Baleo, who is strangely slow here today in 4th place. But James Stevenson is still in the race and is currently in 5th place. Back to you, Joe.
Yeah, you mentioned Alex, and I don't know, actually, maybe it happened just at this last yellow when he hit Phil Schrader, but I'm looking at his car, and he actually has just a little bit of damage on the front of his MX-5, which, if that happened before, that could explain his lack of speed here, but it's definitely not going to help him, whatever the case.
Yes, before we go back to Kevin, I just had a look at his front of his car, and yes, he's got quite a bit of damage there by the looks of it, because it's all scuffed up. So it remains to be seen whether that is going to do something to his top speed, Joe.
Definitely. Looking at James Stevenson, you did mention that he had moved his way back up, so he is in 5th. It's not a total loss for him, but his car looks pretty darn damaged. Up at GS class, we did see a major change that we did announce that Steve Browne has worked his way up into the lead. Kevin, are you thinking that we're going to see some retaliation on this start? Is Brian going to give him a tit for tat?
Well, it's a little tough to tell. I think, Steve was probably a little more interested in trying to make a move on Brian on the restart than perhaps Brian is feeling that way. Let me rephrase that. I think Steve was going to make the pass hell or high water. I'm not sure that Brian Stradbeck feels that way, since I think he probably feels that he's a little faster overall, that he probably thinks that he can just, bide his time with the time that we do have left before he makes his move.
Well, there's just about half an hour left in this race, 30 minutes, and I'm going to be very interested to see how that smash into that Arthur Hermont's GS car has affected James Stevenson, because surely it's his steering must be out of alignment with the front end smash. His front end looks pretty second-hand, so I don't think he's going to have top pace at all, Joe.
Well, he's got less than 20 minutes left to go, and if he's going to take a pit stop to repair some of that, he's going to want to do it now, especially since it'll bring him back up on the tail. So he's in that car, so he knows better than us exactly what it feels like. We'll just have to keep an eye on him and see what he decides. In the meantime, they are doing waiver rounds, which is going to take them just a little bit of time. I'm not sure if we should head to break or not. I'm going to look to my director and see what his instructions are. Nope, we're going to stay on. So, you mentioned, Kevin, that Brian Stradbeck being up there and wanting that win. He's not among the top 5 for the championship because he's missed a number of races. Do you think he's I'm not even going to ask it. I'm just going to make a statement. I am willing to bet that Brian Stradbeck is simply not thinking long term. He's thinking about this race right now. He's thinking more W's on his roster because he's not in the championship hunt right now.
Yeah, he's only managed to make 3 of the 6 races so far, so he's probably a little more interested in the overall win than the championship hunt right now, since it's unlikely at best that he could win the overall championship having to take as many drops as he's had. So he will definitely, I'm sure, try to pass Steve Browne. Just remains to be seen when he'll try and do that. If he'll try and do that immediately on the restart, or try and work with Steve a little bit to pull away from Jason Breifogel as they did early in the race.
Well, I'm looking through and kind of see if I can figure out who is the big mover of this series or of this race today, and it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of guys that have worked their way that far up, but there are guys that have definitely moved down. Duljan Boldrin, who started in 3rd position in the GS class, he has slipped down to 7th place currently, and he's had just a bit of a troubled race. I know he was actually in the ST cars before. I think his inexperience in racing these GS cars is starting to show.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you there. I think he's learning that on the spot that one lap speed is not enough in this series, that you have to be able to run 90 minutes of good, clean, hard racing. And Duljan has had to learn that very quickly, as we saw on lap 1 when he got tangled up with Eric Smith. But Duljan is still in the race. He's sitting in 7th, and he's got a chance to move forward a couple more spots with the 15 minutes that we have left.
I don't think a top 5 is out of the way there, because he's definitely got the speed. As we said, he qualified in 3rd, so it kind of reminds me a bit of Eric Smith earlier on in the season, with the way that he was slipped back from just simple mistakes, kind of rookie mistakes. We have to apologize. We are having some more technical difficulties. I'm finding out exactly what's going on there, and I'll keep you updated on that. But in the meantime, on the ST side, even though I know you weren't quite here for the first part, Richard, what's your notables over in that field?
Well, I've had the opportunity to have a good look at the front cars. So looking at Ayrton's car is no damage whatsoever. And so he will have all the top speed. This second caution, obviously, if he's short field a little bit, is helping him immensely. So Stefan Overgaard's car will be fully fixed now as well, and his car looks good. The car behind Ayrton is Dan Rash, and man, has that car got some damage in the front end. What happened there, Kevin?
That was from the contact that he had with German Afanador in turn 8 that set off this yellow flag that we're underneath.
Right. So the thing is, Joe, that it looks to me as if Ayrton Ellis is sitting in the box seat at the moment, although Stefan Overgaard, who is a past winner of this race, I'm pretty sure he will have something to say about that. Back to you.
Yeah, and, Stefan is an extremely smart driver. He's had a lot of bad luck this season. He definitely would have been higher up had it not been for a few either strategic mistakes or just contacts or things that he really couldn't have controlled. And I'm pretty sure he's going to be hungry for that win. He really is going to want that because he's had not quite the speed, but he's had the smarts for it. Just everything's not going his way. And I think this is going to be his best opportunity because with the draft being so powerful, all he has to do is get in with Ayrton Ellis there, hang behind him, wait for the right time, wait for 1 or 2 laps to go, and get in there. We're getting ready to go back to green, though, as the pace car is coming to the pits, and Steve Browne is leading them away. Is Brian Stradbeck going to get his revenge as we wait for it? And there's the green flag taking them off. Brian definitely gets a decent jump, but he can't get him before the line. They go across it now, so now it's all fair game. He's on the inside, so he's got track position. He's got a really good jump. He's coming up all the way to the inside. They're side by side, nose to nose, and there's more cars side by side behind them. That looks like Eric Smith and Jason Breifogel, but it is revenge for Brian Stradbeck as he gets around the outside on that second corner of Steve Browne. He takes a position back.
Eric Smith into the wall.
Dear oh dear, yes, we did have that Eric Smith. Meanwhile, in the ST class, as they took off, Ayrton Ellis got a good start. Stefan Overgaard was wanting to challenge him into turn 1, but there was some GS traffic in the way. And in third place, we've got Stefan Morien, who is a known specialist for ovals. So these are the 3 I feel that will be challenging for the win, guys.
And it looks like that was Russell Clayson that actually tipped Eric Smith into the wall. When I look back at that replay, Scott Bersher also went off. He is trying to limp that car around, but no yellow flags. Back up at the front. What's it looking like between the 2 leaders, Kevin?
Brian Stradbeck is still in the lead. He's pushing hard. I'm watching his car dance all over the place. So he's definitely pushing it and trying to build as quick a lead, as big a lead, as quickly as he can right now.
Yeah, this is probably a missed opportunity for Steve Browne. Not good enough of a jump. He seemed extremely vulnerable, and our directors continued to make fun of me. But he's moving. He's definitely losing some spots as he moves to the inside to try and capitalize on the draft of Stradbeck. Stradbeck is weaving all over the place. I wouldn't think that the draft is that strong. He's probably slowing down more from weaving like that, Kevin.
A little bit, yeah. I think he's definitely feels that Steve Browne will probably try and attempt to attack in turn 1. So I guess he was going defensive on that. As Jason Breifogel, our third place car, gets deep into turn 3 right there. He goes wide, and he's now vulnerable as German Afanador passes him. Looks like Duljan Boldrin's going to move on the inside. Dan Rash as well, as Dan Rash tries to make it 3 wide on the exit of 5 there. Oh, man.
And meanwhile, in the ST class, we have James Stevenson making a move on Alex Balau. Now, James Stevenson, remember, had that crash earlier on with Arthur Hamon, and it seems like his car is not that much damaged, Joe, because he's still keeping up with Alex Balau, unless Alex has similar damage. And in fact, in turn 1, he was challenging to overtake him.
Yeah, both those cars have some front-end damage, so that's going to hurt their top speed. But it's worth noting that Ayrton Ellis has managed to utilize the traffic just a little bit better than Stefan Overgaard, and Stefan has fallen way back. Ayrton has got a big jump on him and a number of cars between them currently. So with only about 10 minutes left to go on this thing, Ayrton is sitting pretty.
Not that far away. He's not that far away. There's one car between Ayrton and Stefan Overgaard as Stefan now comes onto the oval. Ayrton is just entering the oval at the moment, and Stefan Overgaard still has to make it onto the oval, which he does now. So he will be challenging. Director is telling me something different, which I don't believe is correct. Stefan Morien is in second, and Ayrton. I was totally wrong, guys. Sorry, I'll back out of this.
No, you're doing fine. Yeah, Stefan Morien is up into second, and this is going to be crucial for him to try and maybe use some of the Mustangs to grab a little bit of a draft and get some speed, get back up on the back of Ayrton Ellis. This is exactly what Ayrton wants, with the draft making you so vulnerable in the MX-5s. He's got to keep that distance ahead of whoever is in second place, and that's going to keep that first place solidly in his hands. Go ahead.
So I was fooled by the color scheme. Stefan Morien runs a red and white color scheme as well as does Ayrton Ellis. And in fact, it is Stefan Morien in second place. And now Stefan Overgaard is chasing Stefan Morien. And Ayrton Ellis is done and dusted. He's gone.
Yeah, he's pulled a huge Sebastian Vettel pretty much every restart here. The only thing that can hamper him at this point is his mistakes, knocking on wood. In the meantime, since that's not much of a race... Oh, and we've got a yellow flag.
Well, I'm not sure what happened there, but we do know that our GS leaders, Brian Strodbeck and Steve Browne, were putting down some absolutely storming laps. Those guys were driving unbelievably hard and were really pushing as they'd pulled out a several-second lead over the third-place car of Dualjean Boldrin. And I do know that Strodbeck was feeling the pressure as he kept going defensive, trying to break the draft of Steve Browne on the main straight. So these guys, I think, both feel that they can take the win here still.
I was looking back, and it looks like Chuck Johnson got tangled up with Matthew Reinhold. That was the cause of the caution there, which is unusual because we've had worse accidents than that so far, and not sure why that merited a yellow. But that's up to the marshals to decide, I suppose. In the meantime, this is going to take us right down to the green, I think. I'm sorry, the checker.
I do notice that Arthur Chan has got going again. He's back on the track. And I believe he is following Eric Biggs at the moment. Eric Biggs' car looks pretty damaged as well. And Eric is following Hang Ho Tao. So these guys are all trying to catch up to the train behind the pace car. The race is shaking out quite interestingly, and it remains to be seen what's going to happen at the front, Joe.
Yeah, and I would note that Ayrton Ellis has two Mustangs between himself and second place Stefan Morien, so he still has a little bit of buffer, and it's definitely makes him safe, but not completely safe. So it's not totally over, but he's looking like this is just falling into his hands right now. And I thought I heard someone just run into the wall.
Yeah, as you mentioned, Ayrton Ellis does have Russell Kleisen and Phil Schroeder behind him, and it's quite a way back then to Stefan Morien still catching up. So these guys will close up once the pace car picks them all up, which is happening now. So Stefan Morien will have these two cars between him and Ayrton if he wants to make a challenge. What that does also is gives Stefan Overgaard another chance at getting the second place back, which he had, and overtaking Stefan Morien. Joe?
Well, Tim Brokaw's day has gone from bad to worse. I think he's going to want to stop into the bar across from the raceway and have himself a drink, because he is back into the pits once again. He is already all the way down in 27th overall, which is 14th in his class, which is next to last. The only guy behind him is Chris Burrett, and he's long gone out of this race. In fact, it looks like Tim Brokaw has actually exited.
James Stevenson is now sitting in 4th place, and he's just behind Stefan Overgaard in the train as they follow the pace car. But it will be quite interesting to see his speed against Stefan's. If Stefan immediately pulls away, then we'll know that James will have absolutely no chance of getting a podium position, and in fact might well then be under threat by William Randleman, Joe.
Very much so. Now, I was looking at the GS order, and Kevin, remember how we were talking about Duljaan Boldrin?
He is back into 3rd place in the GS field, having a good run.
Yeah, somehow in that short period of green, he's worked his way up onto the podium, which impresses me. And Alex Balau apparently was having some issues with his connection, from what I understand. Let's check on him. He's scored his 2 laps down, though, so I actually don't see him on the track currently.
Yeah, he disconnected while we were under green, so he had some internet connections, but he was able to rejoin, I think, and I do see that the lights are off on the pace car, so we should be going green very soon.
Well, I would hope that Alex had some internet connections. I think the problem comes when he doesn't have some internet connections. But in the meantime, as you said, we're getting very close.
There is that.
We're getting very close to coming back to green. And here's hoping that we can stay that way for the final remainder of this race. I don't think we can handle another yellow. Otherwise, it will finish under caution. Pace car is leading them around that final corner. We've got just about less than 4 minutes left to go, guys. So Steve Browne, I don't know, is he going to be able to pull his move once again? He's going to want revenge for that revenge and be able to grab that place back. He's been hungry for a win this season. And there's the green flag there. They're taking off. Is Steve Browne going to look at the inside? He is. Oh, wow, covered off by Strodbeck. In fact, he has to weave all the way back. Strodbeck almost pinched him into the wall. Steve Browne's going to have the outside. He still has a decent run. Is Strodbeck going to be able to hold him under braking? Yes, he is. It looks like Browne could still be able to get up there. No, he doesn't quite have it. And Strodbeck is able to defend successfully. In the meantime, it looks like Boldrin is under threat from German Fanador, who's coming around the outside. So Boldrin is probably going to have him covered onto turn 4, and he does. Behind them, though, Dan Rash all the way up into 5th with that damaged car and that hurt foot. Good job to him.
Guys, and in the ST side of things, you can throw
German
over
Fanador have an accident. I'm sorry, Duljaan Boldrin got tipped off by German Fanador. He is off into the clear, so that should hopefully stay green. I'm sorry, what were you saying about ST?
There is a problem, major problems here going into the turn, and hopefully they're not going to bring out a caution. A whole bunch of cars came together, nearly hit each other, but it seems like our leaders, Ayrton and Stefan Morian, were unaffected by that. Joe?
Ooh, and it was very, very close as I was watching the replay there. James Stevenson almost snuck up into the lead as cars were slowing to avoid the accident. So Ayrton just about lost it. I know I've pulled that move at the end of Daytona one year, being able to get in front of someone before the yellow gets thrown. But, you know, I think it's safe to say that this wraps it up, guys.
Well, you know, at this point in time, James Stevenson has regained the 2nd place. Although he slowed down there for Stefan Overgaard, so not quite sure what happened there.
Well, it'll get sorted out, I think, once they get by the line. I think you're right. I think they must have told James Stevenson to give the spot back, so he must have not gotten by before the yellow was thrown. But let's see what's going on up in front of GS, because Brian continues to hold it in front of Steve Browne, and German Fanador has worked his way up into 3rd, although I don't think that's the way he probably wanted to do it, because he was the one that kicked that off by tipping Duljaan Boldrin into a spin.
Yeah, and I was watching when they took off at the restart before this new yellow flag came out. I was watching James Stevenson against William Randleman. Now, remember, we thought that James Stevenson, well, we knew he had some damage, and I wanted to find out how much it had hurt his pace. But he was quite easily keeping ahead of William Randleman. So I think his car's not that badly damaged as we first thought, Joe.
Well, William Randleman was shouting obscenities over the radio because coming around the first corner, he blew his engine. So his race is done only less than 2 minutes from the end.
Dear, oh dear. Isn't that amazing? You go like nearly an hour, I believe it was, without a yellow flag. And then, as Kevin said, yellow flags breed yellow flags. And we've had 3 in the last 20 minutes or so, Joe.
Yeah, it seems the reverse of the previous year, and I'm not sure if we've gone to white. I'll have to check to see what our information says on that, because this is pretty much the last lap, and I think the timer is just about run out. So we could be getting the checkered flag here. Yeah, I'm listening to the radio just briefly here, I'm sorry. Yeah, this is definitely the end of it, that's for sure, regardless. Brian Strodbeck is leading them around. I'm going to check and kind of hold and wait to see if we're going to get the checkered flag or a white flag.
A white flag has been thrown. Remains to be seen if we'll get a check right now.
Yep, you are correct. And I'm pretty sure once the white flag is out, that means we're getting a checkered now. So as the pace car leads them by, that means Brian Strodbeck has got a win. Steve Browne takes home second in Oh, so it was, well, I'm sorry, it was the white flag for this lap. But it's still, unless Brian pulls a William Randleman and manages to blow himself up, this does mean that he'll take the win. And Steve Browne will follow him home with German Affanador completing the podium in GS. So basically what's going to happen here, because the lights are actually out on the pace car, is even though they're going to get a green and checkered here, the cars can accelerate, but they're not going to be able to pass one another.
Yes, and I've just seen Stefan Morian come out of the pits, and he's come out just ahead of James Stevenson, but of course he will he'll be down on James Stevenson. He's not ahead of him. So at the moment, it seems to me that the podium is now confirmed as Ayrton, Ellis, Stefan Overgaard, and James Stevenson. Back to you, Joe.
Well, I think that I would have to say Stefan was a day late and $1 short. If he hadn't have had that early mistake, he probably would have been in it for the win on this thing. So, and I believe we're getting some information from one of the drivers.
While you're listening to that, I will also say that on the screen here, it's showing Ed Voras in 4th place. And if that's the case, then Ed Voras will have his best ever finish in this series, Joe.
I think we're getting some messages from Tim that he's looking to apologize on air. So when we get a chance, we'll have to drag him in and let him give his spiel, because I think he's very embarrassed about his earlier incident. But, well, it was a very exciting one up until the end, guys, I have to say.
Yeah, it's pretty bad, those yellows. I hate it when a yellow comes out and you know there's not going to be enough time to finish the race under green because of that yellow flag. So that is a great pity, Joe.
And the pace car is leading them around to that final bit. Let's see if he pulls in. Yes, he does, in fact, pull in. Hopefully nobody's going to actually try and jump before the line this time. And everybody's just kind of staying in line as Strodbeck leads them back, although people are getting very close to one another. Strodbeck takes the win with the checkered flag, and Steve Browne takes home second. German Affanador comes home in 3rd place in GS class. Dan Rash takes a 4th, and Andrew Allen, with his first time out with this league, takes home a very nice top 5.
And in the ST class, we have Ayrton Ellis winning the race, Stefan Overgaard in 2nd place, James Stevenson, miraculously, after the troubles he had just towards the back end of the race, in 3rd place, and Ed Voras, as we mentioned earlier, his best ever finish in 5th place, and Hang Ho Tao, who had problems and was hanging around the back when I came into the broadcast, is in 5th place, Joe.
Exactly, and I think Ed Forrest was in 4th instead of 5th. That was just a bit of a mistake on our part. But as they circle around, let's take a quick break and wait for the drivers to be ready for their interviews, and then we'll come back with everyone's thoughts. Welcome back to the Continental Endurance Sports Car Series, and we just witnessed the finish of the race at Indianapolis. Unfortunately, what was exciting for most of the race wound up wounding down, actually, and finished under caution. However, in ST, we do have our third place finisher waiting in the wings, and that's James Stevenson. Let's bring him into the booth and see if he's ready to talk about what happened there. James, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
James, you were in the hunt for the win for most of that race, duking it out with Ayrton. Did you want to try and work together with him, or were you happy to keep swapping first like that?
I was just passing him for the first time to get the little lap bonus, and then I was just happy to sit behind him and save some fuel. But I think he had a slowdown penalty or something, and he let me through, and I just led from there.
You obviously didn't have the ending that you were looking for, although you managed to salvage a third, which, if I'm not mistaken, this is your third place in a row. Am I correct?
I'm not 100% sure. I guess it could be. I haven't been off the podium all season, so that's something that's positive, I guess.
Definitely solidifying your championship. We talked a little bit before the race. Did this live up to your expectations, or are you happy with a third, or are you wanting to get back to the top step soon here?
I think a win was certainly there for the taking. It's just a pity that those Mustangs got together and blocked the track like that.
All right. Well, do you have any sponsors you'd like to thank or shout-outs you'd like to make?
Yeah, I'd like to thank Castrol for coming on board and sponsoring me this season. I'd also like to thank my teammates from Asbury Motorsports, Stephen Asbury and Richard Osper, who weren't here today, and also Stefan Overgaard, who picked up a second.
Absolutely, and we'd actually like to talk to him next, so let's grab him. And thanks for coming and talking to us, James.
Thank you for having me, guys.
Let's, I see Stefan has got his mic muted, so I'm not sure if we could pull him in here and get his attention somehow. Let's see if we can pester him. Stefan, can you hear us? It looks like he's not unmuting it for whatever reason. We do have the winner of the race waiting in the wings, though. Richard, I believe you said that you'd like to interview Ayrton?
Love to. Okay, we have Ayrton in the booth with us now. Ayrton, can you hear me?
Yep.
Well, Ayrton, Ellis, you've made a comeback to racing in the CESCS with a win. Tell us about it.
Well, kind of reminds me of Janice's win at Charlotte Motor Speedway earlier in the Blondie season. I'm quite disappointed with it. I kind of wanted a better battle with James, and just those having the second half of the race just filled up by cautions was quite disappointing.
Yeah, it was, and in fact, it was in the last third of the race, the last 20 minutes or so, that we had all these cautions. But how'd your race go? I mean, did you, at any stage think that you didn't have a chance of winning? That James was better than you, or were you always confident that you'd be up there?
Well, I actually changed setups just before the beginning of qualifying. I was actually shot over to a Suzuka setup that I got from another driver a while back, and worked very well. But my only problem was I didn't know how consistent it would be on the long run. And first good 20 minutes or so of the race, I was pretty good, and then James started to catch me, and then he started to. He was more consistent on the long run. I was making mistakes, and I think driving behind him, I was making more mistakes than when I was in front of him. So when he pitted, that gave me a break, and I stayed out until I ran my fuel dry, and then I took 5 gallons in and just hoped to come to the end. And when I came out of pits, I was 8 seconds ahead of James, so a really good pit jump. But then the cautions came out, and then there wasn't much going on.
Okay, we just want to talk about that pit stop of yours, because there was some debate amongst the commentators about how much fuel you took. Did you say you took 5 gallons of fuel?
Yeah, I was running my fuel. I stayed out and used up 1 more gallon than everyone else, including James, and so I was just talking with my 49 Motorsports teammates, and I took 5, and I knew that would be enough to go to the end of the race. But the caution saved enough fuel. I could have taken 3 gallons and would have been able to make it to the end.
All right. Well, we'll come back to that conversation at a future time amongst the commentators. But anyway, we want to congratulate you on the win, coming back from retirement, so to speak. Are there any shout-outs you want to make before we say goodbye to you?
Well, obviously GSRC, and I would also like to congratulate Ed Voras, 4th place finish for him. That's his personal best. Him and I are quite friendly with each other, so a great result for him, and I'm happy to be back on the top end of the podium.
Thank you, Ayrton. Back to you, Joe.
Yeah, good stuff on Ayrton. We're definitely happy to see him up at the front. However, we do have Stefan Overgaard, our second place finisher, finally got his mic unmuted there. Stefan, can you hear us?
Yeah, I got you.
Stefan, second place finish is nothing to scoff at, although I'm assuming you wanted to make it a three-peat with the top of the podium once again. Do you think the early incident on that first lap when you went for the lead, do you think that's what maybe prevented you, or was there other factors that maybe kept you from that top step?
Yeah, well, that first corner wasn't very good on my part. I simply, came in much too hard. But after that I ended up in a group where we couldn't really get clear of each other, so I made an early pit stop, and that actually made me catch up a bit.
Had it not been for the yellows, obviously it would have been a little bit more difficult time for you to try and weave your way through some of the field. Do you think the yellows had a play in you managing to get this far up, or where do you think you'd finish it if it had stayed green the entire time?
I suspect I would get a third place finish, but that been green. I don't think I'd catch Stevenson or Ellis if there wasn't any cautions.
Well, do you have any sponsors you'd like to thank or shout outs you'd like to make?
Just my team AMS.
All right, thanks for talking to us. Okay, well, let's head over to the GS class, which had also a very interesting race. German Afanador did pretty good, managed to get himself onto the podium, and we're going to drag him into here and have a little chat about his race. German, can you hear us?
Yes.
German, you definitely had an up and down race. We saw you go up and back through the field, it seemed like a few times. But early on, I saw you racing with your teammate, Russell Clayson. Was there some team tactics going on? Because it didn't seem like you guys were battling too hard in the early stages.
Yeah, definitely Russell was faster than me in the race. And, there was no point of us racing, so I just let him by.
Later on in the race, you ran into a bit of trouble here and there, and in fact, I know you had a little bit of a contact with Dualjean Boldrin on that final restart. Has there been any words between you and Dualjean, or what are your thoughts on that incident?
Yeah, I mean, I was racing really hard. It was 4 minutes remaining, and I had to. The gloves were off. I had to drive really hard, and unfortunately. On that turn, I tried to outbrake him, and unfortunately got into him. So I did apologize to him, and we're good. He took it well.
It's good to see that there's some camaraderie between guys, even though incidents happen. Is there any sponsors you'd like to thank or shout-outs you'd like to make?
No, I just like to thank Russell and the Apex in general for the really nice setups and the intelligence there. Thank you. That's all.
Well, thanks for talking to us.
Likewise.
All right, well, Kevin, we've got our second place finisher also waiting, and I believe he is a member of your team. So would you like to talk to Steve Browne?
Of course. Let's bring Steve in here. Steve, can you hear us?
Yeah, I got you, Kevin.
Well, that was a great run from you with that second place, and you were hanging with Brian Strodbeck most of the race there, and seemed like you were getting ready to take the overall win at the end there. How do you feel about that one?
Yeah, it was a great race. Having the pace of Brian definitely feels pretty good. I think he beat me by the pole by like 4/10 or something like that. So to stay with him for most of the race, except for when we were in traffic there, was pretty good. And I actually got by him on that third restart there or whatever, and he didn't block me or anything, so I got to the inside of him. And then on the next restart, I figured, he didn't block me, so why block him? He got the same exact run that I did on the previous restart, and then the cautions just kept coming. So, and then in the final restart, he did what he needed to do and went all the way to the wall, and I had to go to the outside. And there's pretty much no way of getting around the outside in turn one there, but it was a good race. Finished second place. I think I might end up sticking in second place every race this season. Can't seem to eke one out here.
Well, even still, that must have helped you out your championship hopes quite a bit there, since the guys in front of you all finished behind you today.
Yeah, definitely. It's nice to get those points, and I know I had less than 6 incidents, so there's another 5 bonus points, and little laps, so that's another 2. So it's a good points day. Hopefully I can overcome the fact that I'm going to miss the last 2 races of the season this season.
Well, that was a great run for you. Anybody you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, thanks to Turn 2 Motorsports, and of course my sponsors, Petrel Data Systems and SoloStorm.
Thanks much, Steve.
Thanks, guys. See you in 2 weeks.
Well, we'd like to see Steve reach his way back to the top of the podium as well eventually here. He's been working really hard on that. But we do have our winner of today yet to talk to, and I believe he's waiting in the wings. Brian Strodbeck is here. Kevin, would you like to interview Brian?
Indeed.
Let's drag him in.
Brian, do you hear us?
Yeah, I got a copy.
Well, congratulations on the win. That definitely seemed like it was a little bit more of a difficult race than you might have been expecting beforehand.
Yeah, absolutely. Steve definitely kind of surprised me there. He was staying with me. I started pulling him a little bit, and then traffic brought him right back up to my bumper.
Yeah, you definitely seem to have a little bit of a gap to him and before the stops, but your pit stop was a little bit longer and a little bit slower than his. Or did you perhaps cut short or have some damage you had to repair since you came out right in front of him?
Actually, I kind of made a mistake on the entry into the pits. I don't know what I was thinking, and I had a pit the lap that I did, and I almost didn't. So I ducked in real quick, which probably knocked a few seconds, added a few seconds onto my pit stop, and I had to fill it up with fuel.
And then some great restarts between you and Steve at the end there as he passed you on one restart, you passed him on the restart, and then on the final restart, you definitely went very defensive.
Yeah, he got me. He caught me sleeping on that first restart. I should have defended the inside a little better, but he got it. He got down there, so he got that one. And on the second restart, I pretty much did the same thing to him. And on the third restart, I took it right to the wall pretty much. I didn't want him getting on the inside of me.
Well, that was a great run from you, and that win's got to feel pretty good.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's always a good feeling when you win.
All right, any sponsors you want to give a shout out to?
No, I'm sponsorless. I'm just on my own. So just congrats to the podium on everybody, and we'll see you in a few weeks.
All right, thanks a lot, Brian.
Thank you.
Good stuff from Brian Stradbeck. I bet he was very hungry for that win. We do have one more person that we want to talk to real quick, who we talked to briefly before the race, and that was Dan Rash. Dan, can you hear us?
Loud and clear, Joe.
Dan, I have to say, even with an injured foot, you managed a fourth place, which is better than most drivers can do with a completely healthy body. Are you happy with that?
Some of it wasn't the most fair way, and other bits was luck. I turned in a little sharp on German there, and we tangled a little bit, but luckily that didn't cause too much of a ruckus. And then on lap 37, and it looked like Arthur Hermant checked up going to the penultimate corner. I was not expecting that and ran into the back of him, spun him, unfortunately, and caused a caution there. So not too happy with that. But then after that caution, there was two different instances where two cars came together and slid off the track. So I just kind of got lucky, and then another yellow came out, so I could just cruise on to the finish.
Better lucky than good, I suppose. We noticed that earlier on you were kind of just hanging back and taking it easy, as you said you would. But as the race progressed, every time we looked at the standings, your name was just getting a higher and higher number next to it. Were you getting a little more ambitious as things were going on, or was that just the attrition rate?
I would say it was three things. The first was that at the beginning, my knee was hurting, and so I went back. It's my right knee, and so I went back to pushing on the throttle with my heel, which is not nearly as precise, but it was a lot more comfortable. And then for some reason, as the race went on, maybe my knee warmed up or worn into it or something, but the pain went away. And so I started moving back to the ball of my foot. And then the second thing was that I hadn't turned any laps here before qualifying. I think I ran like 3 laps in practice. And so I really wasn't familiar with the track at the beginning, so I didn't want to be really near anybody. But towards the end of the race, I was getting a little bit more comfortable. And then, yeah, like you said, attrition. Towards the end of the race, some people had some hot tires and a lot of people were crashing.
Yeah, I think it was at one point that Kevin mentioned with you taking it easy earlier in the race that it actually worked a bit to your advantage by keeping your tires nice and cool compared to everybody else. But regardless, congratulations on a 4th place finish, even with an injured knee. So do you have any sponsors or people that you'd like to thank?
Yeah, I want to thank Free Domain Radio, favorite podcast on the net, for giving me another good car every week as usual. And surprisingly, situation landed in my favor. I did a lot better than I was hoping, so I'm thankful for that. Thanks for the broadcast, guys.
Well, thank you for talking to us. All right, well, that's our interviews. Real quick, sum up, if you guys could each just sum up this race for me in one sentence.
All right, I'll go first. To me, it's a race of highs and lows. You've got the podium who've done really well, and then you've got guys who could have done well who ended up towards the back of the field, and a little bit sad for them.
Well, I think this race was kind of a mirror of Watkins Glen, or an inverse. Clean at the beginning and dirty at the end, unlike which was the exact opposite of Watkins Glen. But a lot of stories to talk about in the next 2 weeks until our next round.
I think if I had to describe this thing, I'd say it was a thrilling bomb diffused. Could have been extremely exciting at the end and wound up kind of petering out. But as we close up, we just want to say a few thank yous. We want to thank Safecraft Racing, who make real-life safety gear for motorsports. They do a lot to help save lives and keep drivers' limbs, arms, and heads intact, and we can't thank you enough for that. They do a lot to also make this series possible. They are the official sponsor of the CESES. We want to thank Wes Eric, the organizer, who puts in a lot of hours to make this thing happen. We also want to thank the hardware and software that we use, iRacing.com, XSplit, Twitch TV, Audio Technica, and even AverMedia. I want to thank the team here, Richard, Kevin, and Giancarlo, for helping us out today and letting us blab our mouths to you fine ladies and gentlemen. If you'd like to find out more about us, go to www.globalsimracingchannel.com, where you can find highlights and full race videos. We're also on Twitter at GSR Channel, and we're on Facebook at facebook.com/globalsimracingchannel. We also like to thank Erik Ekholm, who provides a lot of our music. You can find it not only on here, but on TV commercials, movie trailers, iTunes, and Spotify. If you like it, go tell him where you heard it at erikekholm.com. Also, thanks to Dexter Britain, also provides us with a lot of music. You can find his for companies such as NASA, TED Talks, and McLaren. Listen or buy his music at dexterbritain.co.uk. In the meantime, our next race is at Road America, and that is on May 11th. I'm sorry I won't be able to join you guys for that one because I will be marrying a fine young lady on that day. So I will be happy nonetheless, even though I can't be with you guys. Our next broadcast is the Blondies race at Road Atlanta Club on May 4th, and that'll be at 2 p.m. Until next time, race clean, race hard, and I'll see you on the track.